All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Saturday Afternoon's Main Events Twitch, YouTube, or Twitter account. And welcome to the Survivor Series watch party / live reactions, where we will be going ahead and sitting here throughout the pay-per-view, or I should say premium live event, and we will go ahead and give our reactions and go ahead and speak on the history of Survivor Series itself. But of course, we're gonna have Peeps Nate coming through, later in the show, but it makes it better. Why? Because we have a special guest here tonight. Who can that be, you may ask? Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you can remember the last time we had a guest on the show, he was one of the original 3 hosts of Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. He is also the host of Morton's Law podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. 411, Christopher Morton. Chris, how are you doing, man?
Thank you again for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. Of course. Well, man, how you looking forward for tonight? I mean, it seems like it's a pretty, quick and easy stack card. What are you mostly looking forward to tonight, and what are the matches that are catching your attention?
Well, I'll be perfectly honest with you. Due to having a bout of pneumonia, I've been kind of out of the loop with WWE, and I really should be catching up, but unfortunately, I haven't had any time. So you can tell me what's going on tonight.
Well, tonight is a pretty quick and easy card. I wouldn't lie to you. So of course, if you haven't heard in the loop, the men's war game match consists of the Bloodline, and on the other end you have the Brawling Brutes, of course, Sheamus, Butch, and you have the rest of them, and you have Kevin Owens alongside that, and Drew McIntyre. So that's the first men's war game match, and that's the only one of the night.
I was gonna say, so Drew is in it, and so we get Gunther. Oh wait, no, wrong.
No Gunther.
Okay. See, that's the thing. Like when you think of the Brawling Brutes, and then you're gonna give me Drew. Okay, that makes sense. But Roman, if you're looking ahead, Roman has already beaten Drew. So where are you going from there? Who is Roman gonna face next out of that faction that would make sense for this Survivor Series?
Well, I mean, for it to understand, it's like, I guess they're just putting up against, either putting up people that most likely faced Roman in the past, and it's kind of like, deja vu in a sense, because of course you have, Sheamus in a sense, who has, beat him for a title. You have Drew, who has faced him for the title, and alongside that, Kevin Owens. I mean, all past champions in their, respective times. So, I mean, truth be told, I guess it's just like, all out war in its sense, hence the name War Games. For me, it's more like, I guess it's just like the shock value in an entertainment sense, and especially where they want to go ahead and go with this after, because of course, Sami Zayn is a part of the Bloodline, and everything in that factor. So it's like, it kind of sticks to it,
Well, that's the biggest question, I think, in terms of the Bloodline and the future of it. Where does Sami Zayn fit in the future, and is he gonna be the one that could cost Roman the title eventually?
Now that's the real.
I think that's the biggest question in WWE right now is what's the payoff to this angle with Sami Zayn?
To me, I wouldn't lie to you. I think the payoff to this angle has to be that Sami goes ahead and costs them the match tonight in some way, shape, or form. Although I did say this morning on Same that I actually felt that the Bloodline would go ahead and pull through and take this W. But somehow, in a sense, over the hours, I kind of felt that there is a sense that Sami Zayn may cost a match for them tonight. And the walls may begin to go ahead and start, cracking and breaking, to where probably later towards the Rumble, we get Sami Zayn that goes ahead and breaks up, not really breaks up the Bloodline, but in a sense, leaves the faction, and from there probably sides with Kevin Owens to go ahead and try to claim the, the tag titles. That's what I'm thinking.
I think there's got to be something bigger than that, though, because if Roman is has there been any dissension between Roman and Sami at all? Have they played anything on camera, or are they still as close as they had been 2 weeks ago?
It's still the same way, still same, close, it's, it's still perfectly fine. The one thing I can tell you is this past Friday night on SmackDown, Kevin Owens actually, caught up with Sami and kind of had a talk where he was kind of like, trying to cause a rift between him and the Bloodline, where he said, listen, if they're going to strike after you, why don't you go ahead and strike first? And behind the door listening was Jey Uso. And right after Kevin Owens left, Jey kind of went ahead and got out from, the little backstage locker room where he was at. And he kind of talked some sense into Sammy, where he was like, what exactly are you trying to go ahead and do here? And of course, that's the little cliffhanger that they left us off, just this past Friday night. So most definitely, I guess it just all depends where they want to go ahead and go with this. But I guess that's where the wall starts to break, and that's where they want to go ahead and cause the dissension. So we'll just have to wait and see, truth be told.
And then how they do it in terms of if he does cost them tonight going forward, is it a slow break, or is it one of those like what was the faction with Triple H, Randy Orton? What was that, Legacy?
Yup.
Right. Do they do that? Would they do the thumbs up and the thumbs down on Sammy?
Evolution, you mean? Got you.
Evolution. Excuse me.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, of course, there's no championship involved, so I can't see probably Jay or Jimmy going ahead and putting Sammy up on their shoulders, and you have Sammy just victoriously we'll just have to see. We'll really just have to see how that goes tonight.
Because I think Triple H is a big fan of history of the business, so maybe even though he's not champion, there's another way to do that in terms of making Sammy think he's good with everybody, and then they do the full turn on him as a unit, not just one person.
Now, do you think that comes tonight?
I think it's too early. I don't think it can happen if there's no sign of dissension with Roman and Sammy. There's got to be something there that we at least see. Although I guess you could say the best turn is the unknown turn.
Yeah, you're not wrong on that. But that's of course the first War Games match. The second one is Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, Asuka, Mia Yim, and Becky Lynch, who just returned this past Friday night, against Damage Control and Nikki Cross and Rhea Ripley.
Okay, so even though I hadn't watched in 2 weeks, I kind of knew that was going to be the match. So that nothing changed really other than Becky Lynch returning. Yeah.
But I mean, for me, I still think for some reason, due to the fact that it's in Boston, I think it's just that hunch and that gut feeling that I think Alexa Bliss and Asuka may not be a part of this match. That's just me. Kind of thinking that maybe, a return of Banks and Naomi. Who knows if they want to go ahead and give the shock value to that. I mean, it just all depends. But honestly, to me, I think of course, Team Bianca will go ahead and take this W.
Yeah, that makes sense. So they're going to be starting.
Look what match they start with her. Ain't this great?
Yeah, they're starting.
They really starting it off with. Oh man, this is great. This is great, and of course Becky Lynch going ahead and making her entrance. Thunderous crowd actually sold out at the TD Garden in Boston. This is something to see.
It's nice to see a WWE crowd so pumped up now. I mean, it's just a different atmosphere with the crowd in general.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Think about it last year coming off a pandemic, back in Brooklyn, you had to go ahead and sit there and say to yourself, oh man, maybe we'll get The Rock. Instead, all we got was an egg. And now, fast forward later, a year later, we're in Boston and, thunderous crowd. And we're starting off with War Games, and Triple H is running the whole, entertainment and storyline aspect of the company. It's something to see. It is something to see.
You know what? He's putting don't get me wrong, there's still entertainment, but he's making the word wrestling popular again.
Oh yes. How do you feel about what he's doing with the minor titles again, and actually adding importance to it again, of course with the United States and IC titles?
Look, there's been discussion about Roman and him not being on Raw and once again breaking up that title. But I've always said there should be one world champion who's on both shows. And then you have your minor titles that can be maybe strung with one of the two shows. But the way Triple H is doing this is perfect. I do think he's really trying hard to find out who the future guy is. And that's what he's looking for right now. So there's going to be some misses along with the hits. And even though the show has improved, you could argue that it's still kind of boring, which goes into terms of okay, I got to find my guy. So there's going to be trial and error in this process to get to where he wants to be.
Understandable. Here comes Mia Yim, just obviously returning a good couple of weeks back.
And Seth Rollins is still the champion, correct?
Most definitely. Actually in a match tonight against Bobby Lashley and Austin Theory for the title, so. You know?
Okay, so here's the thing. When I last watched, I had heard that they were trying to rebuild Austin Theory, and I know he had beaten Dolph Ziggler, so there was that one win that he had. So people had talked about the burial of Austin Theory, like what happened? Did Triple H have something against him? Did he burn bridges behind the scenes? Why was Austin Theory getting buried? And people don't really know what happened, but now it seems like he's getting rebuilt again.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing with that, honestly, I'm liking this new revamp of Theory because for some reason it was kind of like he was kind of getting the Roman Reigns treatment. Not in the sense of like, oh, always main eventing shows or whatever the case may be, but like, you know, kind of getting pushed down people's throats, and we just had to accept the fact that, like, you know, he was just getting pushed when it wasn't organic. And now what we're getting with Theory now, I'm kind of liking it because it's just like, you know, he's kind of going off his own path. And it's like an organic heel, not like, you know, whatever we would go ahead and actually expect with Vince being behind him. So, I mean, you know, it's honestly something that we can possibly look forward to.
I think unless you're a real wrestling fan, in terms of seeing what a guy brings to the table, whether it's the mic work, the in-ring, just the overall presentation, the it factor, when you look at Theory as a real wrestling fan, he checks every box.
Yup.
And the people that hate him online, I don't get that. Like, this is your future, and you better learn to love it because he's not going anywhere. He's that good.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I mean, the athleticism, the agility, the physique. And I mean, as you said, the mic work. Listen, the man knows how to go ahead and storytell through wrestling. And I mean, I'm loving it so much. It's just that, you know, with the way that, like, you know, Twitter goes ahead and goes off about wrestlers and how they feel about their personal opinions, it's like everybody just wants to go ahead and, oh, push come to shove, I'm going to go ahead and side with this person because this person actually knows what they're talking. When that's not really the case. I mean, you know, with what they're doing with Theory now, I kid you not, it's going to go ahead and turn around within the next couple of weeks where everybody's going to want to go ahead and sit there and say, oh, you know, I've been a fan of Theory. I love Theory. You know, Theory's but it's actually the real wrestling fans, like, you know, someone like us that will go ahead and sit there and actually know what he was from the beginning. And I mean, you know, that it's just a bona fide real star. That's what it is.
I was familiar with his work on the independent scene long before NXT. He was the Evolve champion before WWE bought it. He was a prodigy at 19. This kid is amazing.
Exactly. So it's most definitely going to be something to look forward to with what they want to do with his career. And I mean, it looks like many world championships in his future. We'll just have to see how that turns out.
I mean, and that's the interesting aspect in terms of the future of the company, because you have him and then you have Braun Breaker, which, by the way, what's your thoughts? When is he coming up to stay?
Braun, I feel as if they should have brought Braun a long time, like brought him up a long time back. I mean, if they felt as if he isn't ready, okay, cool. But I think at least by after next year's WrestleMania, he has to be brought up. I mean, it's set in stone that he has to be brought up. I mean, they might go ahead and put him up at the Rumble just to add, like, you know, some, like, you know, star depth. And I mean, you know, that probably gives, you know, gets his feet wet, understands how the business is. Like, you know, once you hit up the main roster and, you know, you're not doing this on, like, you know, current daily basis, and this is what you have to try to get used to. And after that little test, I mean, you know, let him go ahead and finish off at NXT, you know, drop the title to whoever he wants to go ahead and drop it to. And from there, next night on Raw, you know, give him that debut. Have that elevation go ahead and get to him. But I really do feel that the night after WrestleMania, that Raw, it has to be the day that Braun Breaker shows up and makes his mark on WWE.
Right, and it's got to be a huge impact just to so everybody can see what he's capable of doing. I mean, that's the hardest part about being the booker. We always talk about that. You have the talent, and then you have guys coming. So how do you keep everybody in the picture? That's not easy.
Exactly. It really isn't. It really isn't. It really isn't. So War Games has officially started, ladies and gentlemen. Bianca and Dakota Kai are starting it off. 4 minutes and 37 seconds till the cage opens.
Oh, wow. Okay, so what are you watching this on? Because I am 23 seconds behind you when you had told me what time was left on the clock.
Really? 23 seconds behind?
Yes.
So what's your timestamp on now?
4:44.
4:44? I'm on Peacock. Surprisingly,
Yeah, I don't know. Let me get out and go back in. Maybe something happened with my because that's a lot of time to be. It could be our cable company in terms of our because I have Spectrum, which is horrible.
Got you.
I'm at 4:30 right now.
4:30. I'm actually at 4 now.
Yeah, see, I'm 30 seconds behind you.
I hear you, man. I hear you.
Oh, by the way, let's talk about Bianca Belair for a second. I mean, just where she came from in terms of the track star to the athlete, the professional wrestling, and how far she has risen in this business in such a short period of time. It's remarkable. She is
Amazing,
that good.
outstanding. I mean, from what I've seen from the beginnings, like in NXT, and I mean, the moment that I knew that Bianca Belair was like, just known to go ahead and be great was her match against Shayna Baszler at NXT TakeOver for the NXT Women's title that she, of course, unfortunately lost. But I mean, for me, sitting there watching that match, I said to myself, I will be glad the minute she hits the main roster, because God knows how much of an impact she can go ahead and make on the women's division. And I said to myself, the matches with, Charlotte, the boss, Sasha Banks. I mean, she has that it factor when it comes to a women's wrestler. And I mean, the way that she moves, the way that, her physique fits her correctly. And I mean, the way that she talks on the mic, and the fact that she calls herself the EST, and the swagger that she has behind that. All of that, for me, the minute I saw that, I was just like, it's just amazing. Just amazing. And I mean, we look at other, women in, the history of wrestling that, of course, it took time for them to go ahead and actually, get to that point where they can possibly, of course, back then, it wasn't like, we had developmentals. It was more like, if there was developmentals, you were with Jim Cornette for like a good second. And then he would just, you would go ahead and go to WWE, and you get your start, with probably being a valet, a manager, be put in a tag team, whatever the case may be, and you get your start there. Or, if you're, Ruthless Aggression era like me, you just know her as, from a Diva search. From what it is, I mean, of course, Chris, you're laughing because you've seen a fair share of those.
It was all courtesy, Mr. Laryngitis, or AKA Future Endeavored, who would just go through magazines of models and just pick women out of the centerfold or something.
Yup, exactly right. So I mean, with how Triple H scouts wrestlers and athletes in the way that he sees them, he it's like, from a sense, knowing that she went ahead and had her tryout, and instantly Bloom and any other trainer that was inside the Performance Center that day that saw it instantly said, okay, cool, let's put her in development, so let's give her a contract, and that's what I like with WWE in a sense, where when they scout, they know what they're scouting and they know what they're looking for. And the minute that they know that they found it, they know that we're going to go ahead and enjoy whatever they give us. And I mean, we've gotten that so much with a lot of the stars that we that we've gotten in the past. I mean, of course, Karrion Kross, who we know started on the indies as Killer Kross. Punishment Martinez, Damian Priest. I mean, from Ring of, and the fact that I can go ahead and sit there and say to myself that, we see a lot of these stars, and it's like they got brought up to NXT the minute that, Hunter actually gave an eye to them. And it's like, oh man, Hunter watches the indies. I thought he was like Vince and only paid attention to his, company. Like, geez, okay. This is great.
They were completely opposite in terms of how they saw the business. People say that Triple H had to bite his tongue a lot when having to deal with Vince and the entertainment crap that he was subjected to, which is why he never got along with Kevin Dunn also, and why he essentially said, let me go run NXT because I don't want to be here that much. Like, he didn't want to deal with Kevin Dunn. So Vince said, okay, well, I'm going to give you NXT full control. You don't have to deal with anybody else. That's why he got out of that situation. He didn't want to be there.
And I don't blame him. But the fact that, it's crazy how the tables turn now. Because, I mean, now that, Vince is no longer there. And now you have, Hunter running it and Stephanie being the COO. Life has been great. Am I wrong, Chris?
It's a complete 180. And look, there's still a lot of work to be done. I mean, but this is the thing. People are talking about WWE again. People hated what was going on a year ago. And now you can say, wow, there's something to look forward to.
Of course, exactly right, exactly right. So
and
now,
the other thing, to be honest with you, also in terms of contracts, let's be fair here. In terms of the other company, they're not going to have too many more surprises showing up on their channel. So once you run out of surprises and the fans get used to what they're seeing and they don't like what they're seeing anymore, well, then people stop watching.
Oh no, talk about it.
Right now.
Oh yes, talk about it. What's Christian Cage doing in the Impact Zone? Oh man. Oh man. Some of the worst kept secrets and some of the craziest things that ever happened on TNA TV. Thanks to Dixie Carter. Big ups to Dixie, man.
Well, by the way, if you were in a coma for 20 years and you woke up and you see Sting and Jeff Jarrett on your channel, you're like, what year is it? And they're like, it's 2022.
22.
I was seeing this in 1999. How are they still on TV?
So I figured you went ahead and you watched Full Gear then.
I am guilty of watching that. And here's the thing. I know, like I said, I haven't been watching WWE, even though I have an idea what's going on. The point is, AEW is must watch from the standpoint of it's more train wreck than good. So you're entertained by more of the bad than the good.
You're not wrong on that. You are not wrong on that. How did you take MJF winning the title?
I've always said that he's Piper. He didn't need the title. He's never needed the title. I feel like it's the modern era in terms of, okay, we have to validate somebody by giving them a title. He doesn't need it.
That's fair. That's fair. So in the stance of like, the way that it happened, were you like kind of like surprised with how, Regal actually slipped him the brass knuckles or?
Well, no. I told everybody in group text messages all week, Regal was going to factor in the decision. He was going to screw somebody. I called it.
See, you're not the only one then. See, you're not the only. So we both had the same mindset going into this match. 100%. That's solid. That's solid.
When he came down to the ring, I was like, here we go. And this is inevitable.
Mm-hmm. It's happening. Where's Thanos when you need him?
But, I mean, look, now, listen, a lot of things don't make sense on that show. I mean, they should eliminate the records. Here's why. Most of the matches we see or we don't see that build up someone's record, like, who did this person beat to get a title eliminator match? Who did they beat? Like, and the person's barely above 500. Like, what did they do to Ricky Starks for months? Nothing. Now he's getting a title shot. Are you kidding me? I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it, but in terms of their storylines, nothing makes sense in why he's now getting a title shot.
Exactly. I mean, that's the one. For what it is, the wrestling is up to par. That's the only reason I go ahead and sit there and watch it. Right now with like MJ holding the title, it's like, okay, now you want to go ahead and sit there and see what he has to say, like on a daily basis. Now that he's the face of the company, I mean, now you want to go ahead and hear what he has to say. So I tune in, but I mean, as of now, what more is there for me to go ahead and sit there and tell you, Chris? It's like the minute the whole CM Punk and Elite debacle happened, it's like there's like that little dark cloud over AEW where you sit there and you're trying to figure out what's up with that place. Is it like the owner's a mark? Is it more like he just wants some of the stars of his past life in his company just to go ahead and give him that little shock value that he wanted as a kid, where he wanted to create dream matches? Like what is it?
That's it. That's exactly it. I was gonna add to it, but I don't need to. You said everything what he is. Everyone that knows, until he stops giving people money, then this is gonna be what it is. And until his father cuts him off, or TNT says you no longer have television on our network, this is gonna be what we're seeing now.
Most definitely. See, right minds think alike. Right minds think alike. This is just how it works, man.
I mean, he doesn't want to give anyone else booker duty. I mean, he can't do it all by himself, especially when Ring of Honor comes back. I mean, who knows in what capacity? Obviously, we're going to have the pay-per-view coming up in 2 weeks, actually.
Yeah.
But I mean, he can't do everything. It's not possible. Bookers burn out. If you talk to any booker in the history of the business, most of them, by the way, now 6 feet under, they'll tell you they change bookers all the time because guys couldn't do it for a long period of time.
Exactly right. And I mean, to think that he lets his EVPs go ahead and do that job, where sometimes they book themselves into matches and give themselves some of the much more upper mid card levels types of things where some of the talent that the man spent millions on isn't going ahead and getting that that sense of TV time or that shot to go ahead and prove themselves. It's pretty crazy.
What are your thoughts on this match?
This match so far, I mean, it's pretty fast paced. Now that we see Nikki Cross coming in, you know, okay, weapon of some sort. Okay, cool. Say no more. I mean, for what it is, I'm really trying to see what's gonna happen in this match. But it's like, due to the fact of knowing that, you know, this is going to be one of those matches where I sit there and tell you it's gonna come right down to Bianca Belair going ahead and taking the pin. That's just how I see it, you know. What do you think, though, Chris?
How great is it that Nikki Cross finally gets to be herself again instead of almost superhero, which was the most ridiculous thing in a long
ASH was, oh my gosh, like, to think that we're in the world of 2022, past the times of Gregory Helms being the Hurricane, and we have to sit through Nikki, almost a superhero, becoming champion. What? And the theme music just made it 10 times worse. I mean, Lord have mercy on my soul. Chris, man, thank God that it's over, right? That's all we can possibly say.
I don't know. Clearly, we talk about Vince and not watching anything. Vince didn't watch NXT at all. He didn't see what she was doing with that gimmick with the other faction with Eric Young and Killian Dane.
I believe Sanity, right?
Yeah, Sanity. That was a good faction. That was something to do on the main roster, and he just didn't know about it.
You're not even wrong on that. It was supposed to be something like, you know, 10 times greater than what it was. The minute that she got to the main roster, I was just like, you know, cool. And then instantly puts her into like a whole, you know, debacle with Alexa Bliss in that faction. I was just like, what in the world is this? This isn't the Nikki Cross that I envisioned being on the main roster. Like, what's up? But, you know, things happen in, you know, pretty mysterious ways. But thank God that she's kind of back to her NXT self. So, I mean, you know, there's that to go ahead and be proud of.
Yeah, and it just goes back to what we talk about with Triple H, just fixing, or you could say righting all the wrongs, because there was a lot of wrongs.
Too many of them. Too many of them.
And that's the best thing, by the way, in terms of, like, we talk about, how about just the names alone? Like, now people have a first name again, and we could say Austin Theory
instead of saying Theory.
Right, it was ridiculous.
Oh, man. And I mean, we should have known that the tide would change the minute that we saw Karrion Kross back. Of course, SummerSlam, like, you know, we kind of felt the sense of knowing that, you know, with EO and, you know, Dakota debuting at SummerSlam, it was like, oh snap, this is what we're doing. But truth be told, that Friday night when we saw Karrion Kross attacking, you know, Drew, it was just like, okay, now we see where he's going with this. Although I kind of wanted to see what would happen with Dexter Lumis, and we're not really getting a lot. But I mean, you know, later in time we'll see what happens with that. But I mean, how do you feel about Bray being once again in the mix and being back, and, you know, having, like, you know, somewhat of a little mini feud that will probably go ahead and lead into a match later on next year?
Well, first of all, Bray just coming back in general. I mean, to be himself, that was really a cool moment in the middle of the ring, saying, "I'm talking to you as me, not this character," or whatever he said. I don't remember what he said verbatim, but it was that was a great moment for the fans to be able to connect with him as a real person. And I'm not going to lie and say I've seen everything he's done, because I haven't, but I did see something recently where LA Knight, by the way, thank God he's LA Knight again. I mean, that was another disaster. Max Dupree and the male models, that was an embarrassment. So you get LA Knight cutting his great promos because he's great on the mic. I mean, if you remember all the way back in Impact, I'm trying to remember, what was his name in Impact again?
Who?
LA Knight.
LA Knight. I believe Eli Drake.
Thank you, Eli Drake. He was always good. Like, he sounds like The Rock. It just naturally, like, he doesn't do it on purpose. He actually, I remember him talking about this in an interview. He's like, I don't try to be The Rock. I just happen to sound that way.
And I mean, you know, it's organic. And I don't know if you've been, like, you know, catching up with a lot of it. I wouldn't even try to go ahead and spoil it for you. But, like, you know, the past 2 weeks with SmackDown, what it's been, you know, especially with, like, you know, what he's doing, like, you know, with Bray, it's, you know, it's top tier stuff, man. It is heavy hitting stuff. I'm really loving it.
Yeah, and LA Knight is good in the ring. That's the thing. That's what Bray Wyatt, by the way, second generation wrestler, right? Mike Rotunda, the father. You would think he was
IRS
better in the ring than he is. So maybe now we get to see him in a different light where perhaps he could do more wrestling instead of just gimmick garbage matches that we were seeing as the Fiend. And I don't know. You tell me, because LA Knight is really good in the ring. Has he now? Has Bray Wyatt looked better in the ring?
I mean, it just all comes down to when he has that match with LA Knight. I mean, from what we've seen in the past, since like the beginnings in NXT to his matches with Cena and Taker, as such. I mean, the match with Cena at WrestleMania 30, by far one of Bray's best matches. I still go ahead and look back at that match, especially with like the storytelling factor within it. Of course, we knew Bray would go ahead and hit out the park with that. But I mean, with in-ring ability, I have to say that has to be like the most up to par that I've seen Bray when it comes to wrestling. What do you like in your sense? Where
in his return, has he been in the ring yet on SmackDown actually
No.
wrestling or not yet?
he hasn't wrestled yet. Hasn't wrestled yet.
All right.
All it's been is promos after promo. We still have like more kind of like White Rabbit stuff where he still sends in Easter eggs through QR codes. Some QR codes, some may be phone numbers, which he kind of did like last night. It's been pretty mellow though. It's been pretty mellow where it's just been promos.
So where do you think they're going to take this character with the White Rabbit? What do you think is going to happen here?
It's funny because I was going over this this morning and I said that it looks to seem as if Bray's like whole character is kind of like a whole multiple personality disorder type of thing. And I kind of said this like from the beginning with how through the QR codes you had some of the things being about the Fiend, some of them being about his old self, some of them being about what he was during NXT. So and it was like a whole different personalities of Bray. And then you have the Wyatt Six, which he kind of calls himself on Twitter and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, you have the little intricate personalities that he puts into some of his promos the minute he got back, and how he kind of like is himself. And then you have Uncle Howdy that does a promo like that comes up on a big screen. For me, I sat there and I said to myself, this has to be something about multiple personalities. Like it's just him, because I guess it's just his inner demons fighting it, trying to go ahead and be Bray. But then on top of that, he's trying to go ahead and be that monster that he once was before. But he's really trying to fight it and he can't really do it. To me, that's what I kind of said it was. And the minute I kind of like heard that phone call, like that phone number that they put out on the screen yesterday, and I called it, and out of nowhere was like a doctor going ahead and talking about how this patient literally is having like a big issues with like suffering from multiple personality disorders and isn't taking his medication, and he should be able to go ahead and keep stable, because if not, and it literally cut off at that moment. And it was like the person was literally like, kind of speaking, of course, with an automated message saying, hello, somebody there. And the line just literally cuts off. So, I mean, for me there, just off of that, it instantly tells me that, like, I'm sitting there and, like, really analyzing the situation at its finest, knowing that Bray is, just a multiple personality type of gig. But for me, I'm sitting there thinking that we'll see the Fiend back in a sense, but probably not wrestling. Probably just as like another inner demon that he's fighting. Probably the Eater of Worlds version of him, in that sense. Coming back, making an appearance, probably through the promos, and then through his inner self. And something tells me that Bo Dallas has to be in the mix somewhere.
Right. I was going to ask you that about Bo, considering they brought him back. Exactly.
See, he has to be in the mix somewhere. I think, now being, him being back and knowing that, he most likely signed, once again, re-signed with the company, something tells me that he has to be working with his brother now. There isn't no way that you're going to go ahead and put him into anything B team or, any type of like, lower card standard. No, he's working with his brother. So I want to see, maybe he's Uncle Howdy, for God's sakes. Maybe he's, probably, a part of one of those other masks that they made for Bray, knowing that they made a lot of masks and a bunch of different type of personas. Who knows? But I would really love to see where they go ahead and take that. But as you said, with Bray just being back, it makes a lot, knowing that like the business is in good hands as of now.
Now I know that there's a lot of discussion online in terms of the original run. A lot of Vince's stuff. What was Vince's? What was his? Because people debate like, okay, well Vince is gone. Let's see what Bray can come up with the creative team and Triple H. Will it be different? Will it be better? Do you worry about perhaps if maybe it was more Bray than we thought. Maybe a lot of that garbage was on him, even though he's saying it was more Vince. What do you think about that?
Honestly, me being the person that I am, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and put all the blame on Vince.
Okay.
Cause Chris, let's be honest here. I mean, you've been out here on the outskirts of watching wrestling and looking at the history of it way longer than I have, honestly. And I mean, you know, I applaud you for going ahead and putting up with so much that Vince has pretty much done. And I mean, through some of the, you know, the dumb decisions, you know, the way that he goes ahead and picks and chooses, like, you know, wrestlers, and how he puts people over, and, you know, the way that, you know, some of the storylines sometimes didn't make any sense, and sometimes it wasn't really must-see television, but he called it that. Some of the matches that he implemented into, you know, some of the pay-per-views that were worth wanting to be watched. Honestly, if you think about it, there ain't no way that you would not put the blame on Vince. Like, there's no chance in hell, pun intended, that you wouldn't put the blame on Vince. Like, it just sets in stone. Like, because knowing the type of person Vince was, in a sense of, like, you know, favoritism and who he wanted as stars back when we probably didn't want him as stars. I mean, prime example, Roman Reigns. You know, yeah. You know, so honestly, I think the blame has to go on Vince. No one else but Vince.
My TV level is down. How is the crowd reacting to this? Do they care?
The crowd, honestly, it seems like they're in tune with it. The crowd is in tune with it. They actually sound like they care. I mean, stacked house. Honestly, it had to seem like they care. And I mean, the chants are there.
What do you think about the whole piping in crowd noise? Do you think that still happens?
Honestly, I think so here and there. I think it usually probably happens only during, like, you know, like the weekly shows. So maybe, you know, during Raw and maybe during SmackDown at some points. I have to say that in some stances, piping in the crowd noise, when it comes to premium live events, it doesn't seem like it happens as much because the fans are actually in tune to premium live events. I mean, if, you know, when it came to Extreme Rules, I didn't feel as if like crowd noise was there at any point in time due to the chants, the way that the Philly crowd was really in tune and really, like, you know, alive. And then came the moment that Bray came out and the Holy Sugar Honey Iced Tea chant started ringing throughout the arena, and you're sitting there like, oh, this ain't piping up crowd noise. This is, like, you know, this is really Philly. This is Philly in the flesh. And I mean, for me, I think they actually lower it down to actually letting it stay, like, you know, to itself during pay-per-views and premium live events as to what it would be during weekly shows. So I think, like, you know, they see, like, they're really in tune with this. So I mean, for me, they're really loving it. They're loving it.
Wait, have they done the Tower of Doom spot yet? Because talk about a spot that I'm nauseous every time I see it, because it's been done. First of all, the Tower of Doom started in TNA back in like 2003. I remember them doing those scramble matches. And
yep.
It's now 19 years old, roughly, that move. And I hate that they still do it. It looks bad. It's stupid.
Man, you talk about it, man. Talk about it. Oh,
I mean, I remember when it was good. It actually looked cool for a while, and then here's the problem with moves. They overdo moves to the point where you don't want to see it anymore. You're like, stop doing that.
Yup. I mean, last time I saw it, and I really sat there and said to myself, I don't see what's the point of going ahead and seeing it. It had to be, I think it was Cesaro and Big E, most likely. I mean, for me, I just really didn't. I did not see what the whole thing was with that. I really didn't. It just wasn't fitting it. It really wasn't.
There's still one more person, huh? Who's coming out next?
Yup. So I think it would be Becky. Yeah, Becky's the last person.
All right.
So currently it looks like, you know, Bayley's team has the upper hand as of now.
What's the deal with Charlotte?
Haven't heard anything, truth be told. They're saying that, like, you know, maybe closer, you know, towards, you know, Rumble. Maybe towards December, you know, maybe she's supposed to be back. They have been saying that they have stuff planned for her, but then those things go ahead and, like, you know, stop, and, like, you know, they come back within another week or so. I mean, honestly, I'm kind of okay with this WWE without Charlotte. as much as crazy as it sounds,
Well,
because
can I piggyback off your thought right there? Because if
no
you
problem.
read Twitter, first of all, Twitter is the worst place on the planet. It's just
Oh,
horrible.
most definitely, especially when it comes to the IWC.
But in general, like people hate Charlotte. Like they don't want her anywhere near their television set for some reason.
And honestly, it's not that I hate Charlotte, because I mean, for me, I enjoy what Charlotte has done in the company, starting since like 2014, 2015, especially like with her having to go ahead and like win that title at Mania in 2016, and being like 13-time women's champ. Listen, all of that is great. I'm not gonna go ahead and undermine her success, and I love what she's done, but it's just like, when something gets a little too bland, and that like it's kind of like watered down, and it's no longer what it is. It's like you just have to sit there and take it. And being a wrestling fan, like many other wrestling fans, you sometimes you want to go ahead and get used to other new things instead of seeing the same old stuff. And I mean, honestly, the last time I was actually intrigued for a Charlotte match had to be 2020 when she was going against Rhea Ripley for the NXT Women's title, which is pretty intriguing to me.
And Ripley didn't get the upper hand, which a lot of people wanted, especially in that the pandemic match that everyone wanted Rhea Ripley to win that.
Exactly. So since then, it hasn't been the same where I can go ahead and sit there and fully tell you, like, hey, I'm there for Charlotte's match. Hey, I'm fully cool with Charlotte being. It's just not it. So now War Games has officially begun. Becky Lynch is now in the ring.
Okay, I think I caught up to you a little bit. I think I'm 5 seconds behind now.
Got you. Talk about all these weapons they're using. Lord of mercy. With all these trash lids in the ring, you would have suspected that Steve Blackman would be around, but I mean,
wow, that reference.
You caught that. See? There we go. But I mean, hey, trash lids for days. I'm okay with it. Add a stop sign in here for once. I mean, I'm cool with that too.
Well, how about also, not to mention Duke the Dumpster Drosy?
That's a good one.
Right.
Chris, that is a good one.
Talk about bad Vince gimmicks, right? There's like stories about Vince and how he came up with stuff. He would just find out things about guys in their past, and he would just give them that horrible gimmick, even though they never did that before in terms of like on television. I just heard this recently that Bill Irwin, who was known as Wild Bill Irwin back in the 80s, he came to WWE, and Vince McMahon found out that he played hockey in like the 8th grade, and he made him the Goon. That's ridiculous.
And it's funny because we hear other stories about wrestlers when they first come into the company and they actually get scared of what Vince would want to go ahead and do with them. And of course, one that we always, feel synonymous with is Taker, in which, it's funny how ironic we're talking about this during Survivor Series, where, he kind of felt as if he was coming in as the chicken for some reason. And like, he if it wasn't a chicken, he kind of felt like, oh man, probably gonna make me shave my head bald and call, make me the Eggman. And so, something out of nowhere that he wasn't gonna be fully okay with, but due to the fact that he was getting the opportunity, he would have been all right. But I guess Vince actually had it on the money with the Undertaker, and from there, it's been good ever since.
By the way, talk about a callback. Think about that. 30 years ago we get the chicken, and then recently we get the egg, which came
the
first.
the egg. I mean, still, I can't get over the fact that we really sat there and expected Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to make an appearance, and out of nowhere, Vince pops out. Everybody's happy, and then he just pulls out an egg, and everybody's just like,
Daddy, you don't like my egg.
So, Chris, I have to ask you, man, how did that whole Vince impersonation come to be? Because you always have it on the money when it comes to Vince, man.
I appreciate that. I think just on the show in general, I just heard voices over time, and as you hear them, you could do them. I mean, I'm definitely not on the level of if you've heard Jason Sensation, who could do like 10 or 12 different voices. That's another level of talent. But I do a few. But I mean, you just listen to the cadence, and you can come up with it sometimes.
I hear you. There goes Mia Yim to the side of the cage.
So do you think 23 will be a big year for Rhea Ripley? Because I think she deserves it.
23 honestly would have to be a big year, but I just feel as if now with the way that they have her in the Judgment Day, it's kind of being like, a sidebar to what Dominic is supposed to do. It kind of gives me vibes of like Eddie Guerrero in China, although it's like, instead of being like, faces, they're pretty much heels, and for me, I'm okay with what they're doing with Rhea, and I'm not gonna go ahead and sit there and say, she needs a title shot. But honestly, if it comes in due time to actually like, have it be her year, I'm okay with that. But I just don't see the Judgment. I don't see titles in the Judgment Days, like, future anytime soon. That's just me.
Again, that's the hardest part as Triple H and whoever is underneath him is who do you keep? How often do you switch people from being the top to the middle? Because there's so much talent in that women's division. It's loaded. It's like Charlotte taking time off, like you just mentioned. She's not really missed because there's so many other women that just pick up the ball and run with it.
Yup. And I mean, honestly, as we said, in due time. But for me, if there's a team that I think that needs titles again, I think I'm gonna have to be honest. I think it's the OC. Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. Listen, they're known for being a good tag team, and with them being back in WWE, I mean, once again, being faces, you can possibly do a lot of good things with that.
I don't know. I feel like their ship has sailed in terms of the popularity, like obviously the Bullet Club and all that stuff, and just being the club and how weak that sounds, knowing what they did in Japan. A lot of success there. Ever since coming back to the States, especially having the cup of coffee in AEW and then going back to Impact for as long as they were there, there's a lot of stench on them right now.
Understand. Tower of Doom incoming, huh?
Oh, no.
Just when we were talking about this and actually being afraid of this happening. Here we go.
It's inevitable. Every match.
Here comes Nikki. There we go.
They can't not do this. They can't go, you know what? We did it last time. No. We're going to do it again.
Here comes Nikki Cross to save the day. Not even ASH. Real life superhero.
Oh, man. And everybody having to hold each other and make it look good. Wait, you're not going to go through it?
Oh, man. Here we go. The genius of the sky it is.
Wait, did they hear us? They didn't do it.
Oh, man. So what spot are you at right now, Chris? Because I think I'm still kind of like a little ahead.
Wait, I can see the TV behind you, by the way.
Got you.
I am. I'll tell you when I get to that point. Yeah, I'm a good 3 to 4 seconds behind you.
Got you.
Well, let's applaud that they didn't do the Tower of Doom. How about?
I'll take it. It's perfectly fine with me. I'm perfectly fine because listen, the amount of times you have to see the Tower of Doom on NXT War Games to think that the first main roster War Games they're not really doing. Hey, listen, hats off to them. I'm enjoying that.
Rest in peace, American Dream.
Yup. The innovator of the match itself. I mean, for God's sakes, God rest his soul.
What a great mind for the business. People talk about all the little things that they've learned from him over the years, like Triple H. I mean, he gets a lot of his booking ideas from him without question.
I mean, honestly, Dusty has just been amazing with what he's done for this business, especially with how we know he was so big on tag team wrestling. And how much tag teams really go ahead and try to set the bar and standard for what they should be and how they should go ahead and go about things, to how much he really set a standard for women's wrestling, especially during NXT days, and how much almost every other women's wrestler that we see today really looked up to Dusty. I mean, now, and of course, that still lives on, but I think with Cody being back now, there's a lot in store where finally I think, honestly, by next year, Cody's going to be the face of this company. It's going to be great to see in a sense where now we see that, Dusty's son, although Dusty has his fingerprints and his footprints on WWE, now it's like it's officially set in stone with Cody, holding that title.
I mean, I hope so for his sake. I had done a YouTube video a while back, Morton's Law podcast, by the way, if you get a chance to check that out. Talking about Cody and what he did in AEW, of course, with the throne and the sledgehammer and all those things he did. Now, people always talk about Triple H being the bigger person now that he's on the business side. As a wrestler, he was always playing politics, but now he has to see who the stars are for the future. How do I make money? How does this company get back to where it was?
Of course.
So does he forgive and forget everything Cody did in AEW? Because he has to know about it.
Exactly. And I mean, maybe he turns a new leaf. Maybe Hunter goes ahead and puts all that to the side, because at the end of the day, business is business. And honestly, I think that's what the case is gonna be, because I think now Hunter really wants to go with what the fans want.
And there's no question Cody was over. I mean, that's the best part about his stint before the injury, is that the fans were behind him 100%, which they never were on that level in AEW. Never.
Exactly right. Oh, man. Oh, God.
And that's another thing when you talk about AEW in terms of guys having their creative freedom. You start to see guys that do things, and then you go, oh, that's why they never had creative freedom. Because some of their stuff is really bad. Like, we can't assume that because they've been in WWE forever that they're going to go to AEW now and they're creative geniuses. No, sometimes that's not the case. And for
exactly
Cody,
right.
There was a lot of bad things he did in AEW that were his ideas.
I guess maybe that just still goes back to, probably being, like head booker instances just doesn't always fit everybody. And honestly, we knew Cody the wrestler was 10 times better than what he had to be at a managerial position. But still, I mean, at the end of the day, he wanted to go ahead and, I guess probably because how All In really, set a standard for what indie wrestling is, and how that was actually the first indie show to actually sell out in a span of how many minutes.
Right.
And he really felt as if maybe I'm good at this. Maybe I should go ahead and make this something that I'm gonna go ahead and stick to now, other than just doing wrestling. Maybe I got my dad's calling, and honestly, not everything works out, but in a sense, it kind of helped put AEW on a map, in a sense where people actually felt as if they were going in the right direction, and he was steering it perfectly fine. But
and I think a lot of things, not only creatively, but his matches sometimes. I made a joke about the fact that he would just do almost every move just to show he could do it, because in WWE, everyone was accustomed to him working that specific style. So exactly, he goes right. to AEW now, and he starts doing indie moves, just to show he could do it. And it just got over the top with his matches.
Oh, man. Is that really Becky? Oh, gosh. Oh, my.
Oh, wow.
Oh! Just like that. So, Becky Lynch takes the pinfall. Team Bianca takes the W here. First ever main roster women's war game match in the books, ladies and gentlemen. Huh.
Well, that's another thing people are talking about in terms of the war game match, and of course the way AEW does their version of it. And in the past, with Dusty booking it, it was always the build to the war games itself in terms of getting everyone in the cage. Once everyone got in the cage, the match was over in 5 minutes. But as we've seen now, you could say evolve or devolve, the match sometimes goes way too long.
Yeah. Honestly, they have a lot of good spots in this match. I'm not gonna lie to you, Chris. How do you feel about it?
It was decent. It passes. What are your thoughts on Mia Yim coming back, considering her Her husband is in the other company.
With me and being back, I'm okay with it. Although, for me, I kind of felt like, with her being gone, and of course, like, with Vince releasing Lee, I felt like, that bridge was burned. But now with seeing Mia back, it's like instantly I get the feeling for hoping to see Keith Lee once again, in like, WWE ring, especially knowing the stuff that that we've seen him do, especially with his, if I think, his best feud had to be with Dominic Dijakovic. But I mean,
yeah.
Who
now has a new gimmick on NXT. Someone had sent me
Dijak.
Yes.
For a moment I thought that was the white version of Blade, not gonna lie to you. The glasses, the trench coat.
Tell me what's wrong with his original look. I don't get it. Like, why do they have a problem with how he looked? There's nothing wrong with it.
It's funny because for me, I don't know. It's like I kind of thought for some sense that Vince kind of still runs the gimmicks in NXT. Because I don't know if you caught anything about scripts, in the past week or so. Yeah, it's funny because the minute I saw scripts, I was just like, wait, is that Reggie? What the heck?
Okay, all right, keep in mind. Sorry to cut you off. Keep in mind who's running NXT now and who used to be Vince's kind of ear in those 90s years. So maybe there's a little bit of that with HBK on that entertainment aspect.
True. So I guess, maybe we just have to see how that turns out. But funny thing, we're talking about The Rock this whole time, and we haven't, now we're getting into NXT, and we haven't even talked about Ava Raine. So Chris, how do you feel about The Rock's daughter being in Joe Gacy's kind of cult-like faction, and what do you possibly see for her in the future?
Wait, you still watch NXT? No. I didn't know people still watch that show.
I catch Twitter. That's what I do.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I couldn't speak on any of that. I know who Joe Gacy is from the Independents, and I'm aware of his NXT. But everything else you just said was like a foreign language to me.
Foreign language. Yeah, funny thing, man. Funny thing. It's crazy enough to think that, now she's. Well, I mean, she isn't wrestling yet, but it's like somehow she's in a sense a mouthpiece to what Gacy was trying to form. And now she's just a part of the group. But honestly, to me, I sit there, and when it comes to NXT, I'll go into the Twitter trending page, and I'll see if NXT's trending, and if it's trending number 2 or 3, I'll go ahead and check in to see what's going on. I'll catch the premium live events, of course, but Tuesdays, I just keep Tuesdays just to be regular day. Nothing too over dramatic.
Who was the last challenger to Bron Breakker that he defeated of any significance?
That's funny. Nothing, to be honest.
So what is he doing with the title?
Breakker?
Yeah.
Breakker. I mean, honestly, Breakker has been going up against JD McDonald. So of course Jordan Devlin. Of course he had that triple threat match with Devlin and I believe Ilja Dragunov, a part of that too. So it wasn't really anything too crazy. We have connecting people through wrestling in the chat here. Says aloha, tuning in from Fallbrook, Cali. Welcome, man. Welcome. Yo, we're a fan of your videos. Yo, I love your videos, man. I love your videos. Of course, if connecting people through wrestling, Chris, you sometimes see him, with the, with the regular sign, in the crowds that usually says it on the top. He sometimes, yeah. So he's chiming in. Great to have you, man. Great that you're going ahead and you're watching this with us. But of course, I mean, with that triple threat match that he had at Halloween Havoc with Ilja and JD. From there, it hasn't been anything, it hasn't been much. It really hasn't been much.
What do you think about his work overall? Do you think he is where he should be, or does he need more time?
Honestly, as I said, I felt as if he should have been moved up since this past year's Mania. Because honestly, it was like knowing that he was going into that feud with Ziggler, and he lost the title match the day before, the day of WrestleMania, of course, hours before. Was there really a reason for him to go ahead and win it back the next Monday night? I just didn't feel as if that, it was like he proved enough what he had to be, and you gave him the belt the moment he came into the company. For me, I felt as if it was just right for him to go ahead and hit the main roster. I feel as if he is ready. I'm just hoping to see who he drops the title to, because then that just goes ahead and rebuilds the cycle again. But I just, I really do feel that Braun should go ahead and hit the main roster as of now. He really has to.
I mean, it would make sense right after WrestleMania to call him up.
Of course.
I'm watching some of the stuff from SmackDown last night.
And I started to catch it to understand. So I mean, it seems like the pages are turning, and the tides are shifting, and it's starting to break. Speaking of starting to break, look who it is, ladies and gentlemen. Oh man.
From day one, I knew as soon as we started hanging around with Sami Zayn,
In terms of the bloodline, there's still one other guy that could come in.
And who is that? I actually want to hear this one.
You're not familiar with the other bloodline member who's, for whatever reason, linked to a long-term deal? I don't know why, but he chose to stay there.
I think you're talking about Tama Tonga, right?
No, Jacob Fatu.
Really?
Yes, still in MLW for whatever reason. I've always said that when it looks like Roman is going to lose the title, just like how they brought out Sikoa.
So, yeah.
Like, Fatu could be the last guy that comes out to save Roman or turn on Roman, and he could be the leader of the faction going forward. Because Jacob Fatu, if you've seen his work, is tremendous.
Oh yes. I mean, the whole family itself. I mean, surely rich and historic. I just feel as if, like, like with the way that they I mean, if Fatu wouldn't be the move, and he inked a deal with MLW. I'm surely familiar with Major League Wrestling. I mean, I felt as if it would have been better for him to go ahead and get over here to the big leagues. But I mean, hey, it's okay. For me, I just feel as if the bloodline, it's gonna be broken up sooner or later, and I think come Mania, it's done with. It has to be done with. There isn't any way that you're gonna tell me that 2 years from now we're still gonna be sitting here and the bloodline's still gonna be like a big faction. In WWE. But never say never. We never actually truly know.
Definitely getting Roman versus The Rock. Is that clear? Is that happening for sure?
It's somehow it's still up in the air. They're still talking about it. They're still saying that that might happen. They don't know about his movie schedule. That's what they always say. Somehow they go ahead and they talk about other wrestlers going ahead and making it up for Mania. And you hear about Cena possibly being there. Austin probably going ahead and having another Mania match. But nothing about The Rock at all at any given point in time. I haven't heard anything.
Well, two things. I heard that Austin is working out again consistently, like getting ready to do it again. And Cena has said to people that he wants to do one more full-time run. Not part-time, full-time.
Full-time. Exactly. I mean, if you've seen the workout videos from Austin, it's solid A1. The man is jacked. I mean, for me, honestly, I would actually enjoy seeing another Stone Cold match. But it's like, I guess it's just like that element where we sit there and we're like, listen, your last match was perfectly fine. Don't do it again. Please don't.
Yeah, but wait, Austin is what, 57? How old is he right now?
I think it's about 50. Yeah, I think it's 57.
Billy Gunn, Daddy Ass, I should say. By the way, scissor me, Daddy.
Scissor me.
58. I mean, genetics, enhancement, whatever you want to say he's using. The man doesn't look 58. Tremendous, right?
Of course.
And Sting, for whatever reason, at 60 now, 3, almost 64, still doing what he does. Austin's like a kid compared to him. Like,
oh yeah. But I mean, I guess it's just the Ric Flair effect. Honestly, I think it's the Ric Flair effect. Because we saw what happened with his last match. And I mean, honestly, I'd be damned if I'd have to see that happen with Austin.
Wait. Yeah, but he's 75. That's 75.
True. Of course, but it's like we didn't even think you were going to, we didn't even think Austin would have that match. And I guess that's why he was afraid of the backlash, because he was just like, yo, listen, I don't want to go ahead and make this, let this be kind of like a little surprise. Let it not be confirmed that I'm, actually wrestling. I don't want that to be the case. And, it perfectly worked out fine. But knowing that we may actually walk into knowing that he may have another match, it's just
he took some bumps, by the way. He took some legit bumps in that match.
where I was actually afraid for his neck the whole time. I was just
Right.
like, like, oh man, like, what's gonna happen in this whole stance? So it's just like, I guess I'll be okay if I know it's with somebody that I know that heavily protects, like, their opponents. And I mean, for me, there's only two that I can possibly think of now that I wouldn't be mad at, and one of them is Orton, and the other one I have to say is Cena. It's either one of those two.
Well, firstly, Orton, what's his status? This guy's been out for a long time.
Orton, I believe, had surgery a couple of weeks back, and he hasn't, of course he's recovering. They're saying he's supposed to be good doing time for Rumble, which makes that another return that's added to that list. And there's a lot of returns that I'm hearing about for this, for this upcoming Rumble. And when I tell you it's stacked, Chris, it's stacked, man. It is stacked.
Well, okay, let's put it in perspective. If The Rock and if they know by January, Rock and Roman isn't happening, and you're doing the returns that you just mentioned, is Cody coming back to win the Rumble and then beat Roman at WrestleMania?
I think that's what it is. I honestly do think that's what it is, because I can't see it any which way. If there's any time for Cody to go ahead and win the Rumble, I think it's now. We knew for a fact that there was probably a chance that he probably would have had Money in the Bank by chance, if that's what they wanted to go with. But honestly, I think Cody's supposed to be the one to dethrone Roman. There isn't any other person that I can possibly think of that will go ahead and do that other than Cody. Because after that match at Hell in a Cell, it was just like, it was set in stone. It just had to be him. It honestly just had to be him. So I think come Rumble, yes, he'll be the winner. He will be the winner.
The one guy I think could dethrone Roman, but I mean, eventually, Theory could be that guy down the road. Obviously, Roman's not going to hold the title that long for it to be Theory to be ready. And the same thing for Braun Breaker. But in the immediate...
Hold on, Chris. Hold on. Give me a sec, man. Give me a sec. One sec.
Before we get into the Balor-AJ match, I do want to make mention of that pathetic assault on Thanksgiving by Dominic and Rhea Ripley on Dominic's father, Rey Mysterio, when they showed up at Rey's home uninvited. I had the opportunity to actually talk to Rey Mysterio.
Damian Priest just looks like a badass. Like, the presence alone. He should be a bigger deal than he is. Maybe one day he will. I don't know.
Again, Dominic and Rhea Ripley doing that to Dominic's father on Thanksgiving, as we now turn our attention to the match tonight between Finn Balor and AJ Styles. This matchup,
Dominic does look a lot better with this faction. I mean, it kind of fits. Makes sense. I think like AJ Styles is forgotten oftentimes in terms of his career, accolades, and everything he's done. And now he's just, I mean, don't get me wrong, this is a good match to have on a card. I mean, clearly, Finn Balor and AJ Styles, which could be a main event anywhere in the world. I know people often say that ad nauseum, oftentimes not true, but I mean, that's just an incredible match on paper. Not everybody gels in the ring. But when you think about the history of the Bullet Club and Finn Balor being removed via AJ Styles, I mean, it would make it better if they could actually show video footage of everything that transpired in the New Japan Pro Wrestling that made this match even bigger. Because then it would be a bigger deal to the fans. They're like, whoa, look, this happened, 6-7 years ago. I'm guilty of not watching New Japan lately. It's been a while. It's just so much wrestling when you think about it. You need to have like another day off or just like a day to yourself where you can just catch up on everything. I mean, you got 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of NXT, and you got AEW. That's what, 5, 7, and that's not even if you watch the crap of Dark and Elevation. That's more crap to watch. And then of course Rampage on Friday and SmackDown. I mean, and the premium live events, and then it's so much to watch. MLW, NWA. I mean, it's a lot. I don't know how people do catch up. Obviously, if you're getting paid to be a reporter or work in the media for wrestling, yeah, then you find time to watch it because it's your career. But being a regular fan watching, that's hard. That is really hard. What a career AJ has had, though. When you think about the matches, I mean, the one of the matches that stands out for me in terms of one of his best is what was that 2007 Unbreakable, the three-way dance, AJ, Christopher Daniels, and Samoa Joe. Wow, that was, I mean, three-way matches can often be clusters and just nothing goes well. But for whatever reason, that match to me stands out as one of the better three-way matches you'll ever see. And I believe Uncle Dave even gave that 5 stars, or I don't know, 4.75. That's when he was actually rating matches that on a real scale, unlike today where I don't know, anybody can get a 5-star match now. It's like Oprah, you get a 5-star match, you get I hate doing that, by the way. That's overdone. Sorry, but a lot of matches are not 5 stars that he says they are. Have your own opinion. Don't be a sheep. And by the way, when you're looking at Gallows and Anderson here, they were much more intimidating in New Japan with the face paint. They just had a different look to them. And which is also why I love the Gorillas of Destiny. Also a great tag team in New Japan. Tama Tonga, I mean, I always felt like he has it. Like he could be a guy that matters in the business. I couldn't tell you what he's doing right now in New Japan because I haven't watched, but Tama Tonga just has that personality, that edge to him. And you're like, that guy can drum money because he gets natural heat. How about that? A collar and elbow tie-up. Some wrestling. What is this? On the other channel, they'd already be on the floor fighting, hitting each other with chairs and tables. Wrestling, ladies and gentlemen. WWE Universe doesn't know how to react to this. Like, what are we watching? What is it? Like they're having to be retrained how to watch wrestling. Like this is good. Applaud this. That's the thing. Like the more WWE shows their fan base, AEW is going to get wind of that. Those fans, the fans that used to be ECW fans, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of those people that still live. And you can hear it in the fan base with the chants. All the crazy chants that they have to the wrestlers. Those are ECW fans, without question. Mixed in with all the snowflakes. But those people love wrestling. So like, wait, I mean, how many of those fans right now would love to see AJ Styles against Finn Balor on Dynamite or a pay-per-view? Of course they would. It's a dream match for so many people. But again, it goes back to what I've always said in terms of just watch everything. Don't hate on things just because it's a brand. Like, I don't get that. Like, AEW fans hate WWE. WWE fans, well, a lot of them don't even know AEW exists. There's a percentage of those people, the casual fan, who may find out about AEW for the first time watching a TNT broadcast of NBA or NHL. Like, what is this? Especially during March Madness when they were running promos nonstop on all the sister networks, TBS, and what is the other one? There's like 4 of them. But look at this, selling the body part. Love it. Look at Finn. Look at that. Kick the leg, sell the body part. Some good work right there. Simple and easy. Less is more. A lot of people don't subscribe to that. We got to do everything in the book, and then there's nothing left to see. How about that? Some fists, some punches. Not the greatest punches, but some punches. Instead of what do we get on the other channel? Some fake-looking forearms where everyone has to slap some body part to make it sound good. By the way, shout out to Angelina Love recently on Twitter talking about like begging people to stop slapping their leg when doing a chop or a forearm. Like, it's over the top. Like, Austin Theory is good at it. When Austin Theory uses his leg in any capacity, he just claps. Like, you're not looking at it, he'll just clap. That's it. No leg slap, no back slap, just claps. It's hard to hide it. Listen, if you're looking for it, you're gonna see it. But some guys are just over the top blatant. Like the Young Bucks are the biggest offenders. I mean, it's just absurd how they openly show themselves. They don't even try to put it behind the leg. They just slap the front of the leg. They don't care at this point. Look, I mean, let's be honest. They wrote a book and they called it "Killing the Business" for a reason. Oh yeah, vintage Bret Hart right there. Backbreaker. Well done. Look at this. Nice slow down match. Everything makes sense. This would be incredible. 45,000 people in the Tokyo Dome. Wrestle Kingdom. That's a thought I've had recently in terms of that Forbidden Door that everyone talks about. The Forbidden Door. Like, with now learning that Nakamura is going over there to wrestle Muta in his farewell tour. I mean, that just opens up the door. I mean, obviously Triple H was able to get Liger to come to NXT to wrestle, of all people, Prince Pretty. Remember that match on an NXT pay-per-view in Brooklyn. I was there live for that. A lot of people were upset that Prince Pretty didn't go over in that match. Like, what? Jushin Thunder Liger, are you kidding me? That's why I have issues sometimes with legends that come over to AEW and they just do jobs. It's like, what? They brought Shibata over to lose clean to Orange Cassidy. What is that? I don't know how much money Shibata got paid to agree to that job. It's like, are you kidding me? And then again, Ishii's coming over, losing everyone left and right. Lost to Eddie Kingston. Lost to Jericho last Wednesday night. Then they brought in Jun Akiyama, another legend, and they had Kingston beat him. Like, Jesus. I would love to see the zeros on those checks. An abdominal stretch. Look at this. If you're watching along Peacock, Saturday afternoon's main event here. Morton's Law Podcast. Check me out on all platforms. YouTube. I've been sick, by the way. I know if you go look, I haven't done an episode in about 2 months. I had bronchitis, pneumonia. But I'm slowly recovering, and we'll be getting back to doing my stuff. Look at these nice clotheslines. Just simple stuff. That's the thing. I talked about it in one of my episodes. Make moves matter again. I hate to play off the MAGA because it's horrible, but it's like Paul Heyman once talked about, I forget where he was in an interview. Like, if Big Show, for example, did a headlock and did the headlock every week, and nobody could get out of that headlock, and he was submitting everybody, it would be a big deal when someone finally got out of it. Wouldn't it be? A headlock.
Chris, I'm back, man. I'm back.
I'm doing my own show the whole time you've been gone.
I hear you, man. Listen, I came back. I heard you on the headphones. I was just like, oh shoot. But of course, you're not the only one. You're not the only one in the room, and I'm not either. Because of course, we have the Deep Voice Dynamo, the Peeps Nation out here. Peeps, welcome. How are you, man?
It took long enough. As the invisible opponent technical difficulties tried to get the drop on me, so I had to show him the door, give him the old cradle, and pin him 1, 2, 3.
Who's booking over there? GCW?
Hey, well, peeps. I'll give you a Barry Horowitz, okay?
Yes.
How about that?
Yes. Go.
Out on the back, 18 inches away from the kick in the rear. There we go. All right.
Yes. My partner and my brother from another mother. How you guys doing?
Everything's good.
Good, man. We're
We're
good.
Going
We're good.
off on a tangent here, talking about New Japan Pro Wrestling, talking about everything for the people that have stayed and listened to me.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, it's been sweet, man. It's been sweet.
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught the results for the first match of the night, but
I
you know,
was
Team
able
Bel-
to actually able to watch the first War Games match. Actually, pretty good pacing. A lot of propping up and trying to find parts of the match where to go with all the weaponry. Mia Kim having trouble throwing the garbage cans into the ring. I mean, but it was actually an entertaining match. I didn't have too much of a problem with it. It was actually it was a fun.
I was just talking about. I'm sorry to cut you off, Peeps Nate. Before you guys came back, I was just talking about making moves matter again, and the fact that like Big Show, like if you use the headlock for example, Paul Heyman did this interview where he talked about the Big Show did a headlock every week, and no one could get out of it. And then like 2 months later, someone finally got out of it. It would be a big deal. So I think because fans right now are so used to seeing everything plus the kitchen sink, they don't react to anything anymore unless you're the AEW audience that for some reason can see the same thing 1,000 times and still react the same way. I don't get those people, but okay. But it's like with the steel cage with War Games, Dusty's vision, right? The cage is supposed to be a big deal. But yet you have weapons in the ring also. Isn't the cage like a bigger deal than the weapon? Now you're adding things to the cage. Is it needed?
And there's no roof on the cage, which was the whole point behind having a roof on the cage in the first place. So if you're going to have weapons in the match, the weapon should already be there so that nobody can try to bring any of them in. And then it throws away an element of danger, because I always watch the War Games match and you see that roof on the cage. And you knew it was like, oh, wow, someone's going to get hurt. That was the first reaction anytime I watched the War Games. Once that roof on the cage and the cage came down, it's not the same. We're obviously not getting blood in any of these matches. But it's still an element that's missing from these kinds of matches, and which is one of the reasons why they don't do War Games every year as often as you would think, kind of like the normal Hell in a Cell or the ladder match, the Money in the Bank, doing it all the time, because it loses its luster when it's done all the time. And you have to have the right people in the match to make sure that the match seems special, which kind of goes back to what you were saying about making moves matter.
Right.
Same kind of thing. Make a gimmick match matter.
Right. That's the one thing I don't get about Triple H, though, considering his history. We talked about Dusty earlier and the match itself. If you're not going to have blood in WWE, this is the one match that should have it, so it becomes a bigger deal when you show the fans blood for one time.
Of course.
Especially when they teased it with Natalya getting her nose after she got hit with a headbutt in the nose a couple of weeks ago, and she was bleeding from the nose. Now that was worked, but that's the whole point behind having a War Games match. If you're gonna do something like with the Extreme Rules, where that horrible show that they did a couple years ago with the horror show. With the eye for an eye match, if you're going to have a gimmick show or a gimmick match, and the whole point of it is being an element of danger you're not going to see anywhere else, why not debut it in the War Games? Unless the match is going to be over the top violent, blood works in a match like that, and people would understand it.
By the way, I was talking about the history between Finn Balor and AJ Styles and how much better it would be, this match or this feud, if you could show video from New Japan when AJ turned on Finn. Like the fans could see the history of the two of them. It would be a bigger deal.
Yes. And instead of just blind references, because it's one thing to say, well, they did this in Japan, they did this elsewhere. It's another thing to say that and then have video proof to show it. And that's one of the things that, as we talked about a little earlier this afternoon, the reason why Triple H wants these War Games matches is to actually have vignettes to show when they advertise future War Games pay-per-view shows, etc. You've got a history outside of what you know from the 80s and the 90s and WCW. You can now have actual steps of matches there. So that's one thing that you kind of cultivate, what you're going to add to advertising a match like this. Makes perfect sense.
That's the one thing I'm happy hearing from Triple H in terms of getting rid of some of these gimmick matches and gimmick pay-per-views. Like Hell in a Cell isn't going to exist anymore. Thank God. He's going to get rid of a lot of other things. We talked about this recently on a phone call in terms of the announce table that spot has to stop for a
It's
while.
a cliche. It's an old cliche.
Go away and then bring it back when it matters.
Yes.
And just the tables and chairs and everything, every show, it's gotta stop, because you gotta make the fans react to something. If they still see it every week, the reaction is less each time.
Yeah.
So at least somebody would bring, not the AEW audience.
The broadcaster's table is akin to the old run-of-the-mill Simpsons couch gag. It's like every week it's the same thing, or looking at South Park and finding Kenny getting, finished off every time. So yeah, it's the same kind of deal.
So yeah, I definitely just like where Triple H and the direction and everything is going. That's what we were talking about before you came on. A lot of just the progress, the small things that he's trying to change for the future, and with that comes trial and error. Things are going to happen that aren't good. And is some of the show still boring? It is. But he's just trying to throw things that can stick to the wall and see what works for the long term.
Yeah, and has to also undo some of the things that Papa Vince had already weaved into the fabric of WWE, to kind of undo that without fully unraveling everything, yet finding his own way. And it works, because everything that we've seen for the most part shows a huge upside. And there's intrigue, and there's a willingness to say, you know what? I actually want to see this. There was a time when you and I, if we weren't able to see Raw or we weren't able to see a SmackDown, it was like, wow, whose house are we going to go over to see it? Oh, what happened? It was appointment TV. And if we couldn't, we would record it so that we didn't miss anything. When was the last time you heard somebody say, oh, I DVR'd Raw or I DVR'd SmackDown to see what was going on so I wouldn't miss it? These are the kinds of things that are actually starting to happen more so than a lot of other times when we talk about WWE, especially within the last 2 or 3 months.
Well, that's the difference. And that's why they always play on the words. And that's why Dynamite they always talk about, you got to give the people what they want. Vince never did. He didn't. Yeah. But the problem with that is the other channel gives just that audience what they want. You're not giving the other people that could be watching what they would like to see. So people that channel surf and come up on something and go, what is this? I haven't watched wrestling in 5 years. Let me check this out for 5 minutes. And then they're immediately turned off to the product.
Yeah. And then that's a huge problem, because you can't grow the product like that. If you're trying to get those fans back, or just trying to entertain the ones that are there. Now, we've talked about before, AEW, instead of worrying about WWE, what they need to do is worry about just growing and maintaining their own product, and then letting everything else work itself out in the long run. And they don't do that. It's almost like what Bischoff used to do with WCW and the WWF, where it was like, oh, we're going to book our show just to beat Vince. And it has a shelf life. At some point, you have to have a little more substance afterwards. And that's something that didn't happen going forward, which kind of finished off WCW, among other things.
Something else we were talking about, which you can speak on, is the history of booking and bookers in general, and how over time bookers wear out. They get complacent, they get overwhelmed, they get burned out. And that's what's going to happen if it hasn't already started to happen to Tony Khan. It's inevitable.
Yes. Especially since Tony Khan, from what I've seen, books like a fan. I have no problem with a young, innovative booker that comes out and has different ideas that are outside the box, that works not only for the talent, but also gets the intrigue and the interest of the fans. The issue with that is, if you hotshot book all the time, you're going to burn not only the product out, you're going to burn the fans out on seeing something, and they're going to always expect to see the next big thing happen. Oh, who's the next guy coming in? Who's the next person coming in? Who's the next champion, et cetera, et cetera. And then they're expecting that. It's kind of like that cliche of what used to happen with ECW. Well, at this particular show, the fans are expecting a surprise. Well, how is it a surprise when you know the surprise is coming? That's completely antithetical to how you want to book. So those are the kinds of problems that Tony Khan has to really work on. And with 3 years in, I think he's done a decent job, but he's also his worst enemy because he's a complete workaholic and he needs to delegate booking elsewhere so that he's not doing it all himself.
Right, and the best guy to bring in, which everyone has been talking about, obviously Gabe came back to WWE, so he's not available anymore. But
Yeah.
Hunter Johnston, Delirious, who booked Ring of Honor for many years, sometimes actually with Jim Cornette back in 2011 and 12. And he has a great mind for the business. He could, without question, help Tony Khan. And for whatever reason, he just does not want to give anyone that responsibility.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that Vince McMahon had a problem with, is that although he had a quote-unquote booking committee, it was mostly a voice of one, because no matter what anybody else said, the last word was Vince's. And that hurt a lot of storylines, a lot of pushes, and a lot of progress. So that's one of those things you have to fight. And the last thing Tony Khan wants to have is that reputation on it.
By the way, this was a damn good match. This was really good. They did a lot of basic stuff, nothing over the top, nothing really on the outside. And this is the kind of match. I'm curious to see what Uncle Dave rates this match, because this is really good without all the extracurricular crap that we talked about so far tonight.
Yes. And that's one of the reasons why I always mark out for AJ and I always mark out for Finn Balor, because of that kind of reaction that they get from the match that they just had.
See, fellas, this is going to be one of those matches that I tune into after the show tonight, because I literally missed the whole second half. But, hey, at least my prediction comes in right, peeps. At least my prediction comes in right.
Yes, I have it checked, and you got that one right. So you're 2-0 right now, and I'm 1-1.
I'll take it.
Did you guys take any action on DraftKings? Did you win money?
Right. I wish.
If only they allowed betting out here in Florida. Oh, man. Let's move away from politics, though. But I mean, honestly, it's okay. I mean, we with our predictions, I think we're pretty much neck and neck.
Yeah.
Truth be told.
Right now, roughly.
I've
got maybe by the next show I'll try to bring up the other ones that we've done and then kind of jot them down and get those all added up to make sure.
You know what else I liked about that match, and we were talking about it when you were gone, is the punching with the fists. People don't punch anymore. Everything is horrible uppercuts and terrible chops. The match between Eddie Kingston and Jun Akiyama, great legend, love the guy, don't get me wrong. That match became unwatchable because that's all they did. I mean, the match that he had with Ishii also, it was like that's all the match was. It wasn't wrestling.
The Ishii match was disturbing in the sense that the match was about 15 minutes long, and the first, I'd say 8 minutes were chops. Now, I love chops, obviously being a Ric Flair fan, but Ric Flair explained the reason why he chopped is that he was afraid he was going to break his hand. So he used the chop as his offense, but he still punched, and he knew how to throw a punch. We're seeing more along the lines of forearm, and then chop, 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 chop. Just like we see super kick, super kick, super kick. It's the same kind of thing that we see when we talk about moves, making them matter in the context of the match. If you're going to do those kinds of moves, you're literally desensitizing everybody to the rest of your arsenal. So when you actually do see one well executed, it's like, oh, I've seen this one like 13,000 other times.
Yeah, no, the fist. Listen, here's my biggest gripe. If there's a feud, two people hate each other, who's throwing a forearm in a fight?
Yes,
like it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's a
it doesn't make any
honestly
sense. Yes.
And also, by the way, to further that point, it's no disqualification. The punch is illegal. You're not getting disqualified for throwing a punch.
Yes. Could you imagine Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels getting it on at the Survivor Series and all they're doing is throwing forearms at each other?
Imagine.
Bad. Oh, and by the way, before you guys came back, I was talking about Angelina Love's tweets where she was begging people to stop throwing those forearms and slapping their leg. And she said, it sounds horrible.
Yeah. It
honestly,
has to be done in a certain way.
Exactly. I think there are there are some wrestlers that master the super kick so well that sometimes you really won't actually catch it. One of the people I might say that, you know, I've watched for like, you know, a good amount of time and noticed that they always master the super kick well has to be Dolph Ziggler.
Yes.
And that's
well, remember, Dolph Ziggler was taught by Shawn Michaels, so that has a lot to do with it.
So that has a lot to do with it. But then you have those of like, you know, Super Kick Party, and then you have Adam Cole, which of course, don't get me wrong, you guys know how much I'm a mark for Adam Cole, but it's like, you know, still you catch the super kicks, you're just like, man, like I literally see the minute you're about to lift the leg up and I see the hand about to go ahead and hit your hip. It doesn't help.
It's like, try to hide it. You know what Austin Theory does? Because Austin Theory is properly trained by Rip Rogers, if you're familiar with that legendary wrestler. And when he does anything involving his legs, he just claps. Like, if you're not looking for it, you don't see him clap.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's all it is. It's all obfuscation and trickery and a little bit of hoo-ha and magic. That's what it's supposed to be. And you don't see it as much. It's like a lot of them, they just don't care. It's like, oh, well, guess what I'm about to do? And the fans buy into it. I am of the mindset of, just like what Jim Cornette would always say, it's the trickery involved so that you can fully invest and believe in what you're watching. You don't want to be taught, shown, oh, that's how he did it. Oh, that, like when you see somebody go to the top rope and the camera is set there and then all of a sudden it pans back and you can see the person outside just standing and waiting and looking. It pulls you out of how believable the match is. Thoroughly frustrating.
Of course, it really is. It really is. So now it looks like the next match on the card is Shotzi versus Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's title. Oh man. What was my prediction for this match again?
You and I both have Ronda winning this match. And I think, like I said earlier this afternoon, I think that Shotzi is going to be the person that kind of does the Liv Morgan deal where she tries to fight at all costs and, you know, give it the old college try, as the expression goes. Mm-hmm. Since Liv is now kind of like off the radar or lost her mind or whatever they're doing with her gimmick, I think Shotzi has kind of replaced her in that the way that they want to maneuver her personality and her gimmick with that. So maybe that's where they're going with this. Ronda's going to win. It's just a matter of how.
With Triple H taking over and all the NXT people that he actually signed and what they're doing now on the main roster, and Shotzi is a prime example.
Yes. And the good thing about it is they don't act as if, obviously because Triple H is running everything, they don't act like NXT is an afterthought. It's almost like somebody had a bad dinner and is burped, and that's how Vince treated NXT. Oh, let's bring Karrion Kross up to the main roster and we'll put him in a gimp suit. Oh, that makes perfect sense. Let's take away all of the things that made him special. Let's give him his entrance music, but let's not give him his smoke. Let's not give him his valet, which happens to be his wife. And then we'll cover him up.
So ridiculous.
It's absolutely insane. And then you wonder why all of a sudden, oh, well, this just isn't working. I don't know why I can't make any money off of this guy. I wonder why. Yes. It's the same thing that they did with Shayna Baszler. Remember, just 2 years ago, she was a buzzsaw running through the entire women's division when they brought her up to the main roster. And what happens? They put her in WrestleMania and quote-unquote wet to bed, and she was in the tag team with Nia Jax, and it seemed like they were going to go somewhere with it, and it didn't, and then she became a comedy wrestler, and she did interviews where she said she was kind of exploring her character development. And I think on the inside, she was wondering, well, what happened to my serious push? This is what is happening to her serious push right now. She's being taken seriously again. And I'm so happy for that.
Oh yes, most definitely. Although I kind of do miss the old theme song, and like, you know, like the real, you know, some things about like, you know, like the NXT-esque version of wrestlers, especially when you know that they came from black and gold. And when it comes to Shayna Baszler, it's like everything that she had. I mean, we all knew that Shayna was destined for greatness the minute she would probably most definitely hit the main roster. But it's like, what we got, oh man, did that suck. And I mean, I remember during the pandemic era, once again, And it's, something about the NXT talent taking an L during that whole Mania, where of course we saw Rhea Ripley go ahead and lose the NXT title to Charlotte, and on top of that, we saw Shayna Baszler lose her shot at winning the Raw Women's title from Becky Lynch. When we could have sworn that after that Elimination Chamber match, where she literally squandered every person in her path, somehow, some way, she would have won the title, and that wasn't the case. So I mean,
it's literally taken 2 years to repair the damage that Vince did with that push. That's how bad that was. And here we are right now. Let's hope that it gets further along and she gets way further than she has and reclaims some of that luster that she had when she was in NXT.
And just think of the direction that Paul Heyman was taking Raw with all the young guys coming up and showing where they were going. It was a pandemic, mind you. No crowd. Yes, the ratings were down slightly. Yes, USA Network may have overreacted. But Vince then panicked and then removed Heyman. It was horrible because he had a plan in place, and Vince wouldn't let it come to fruition.
Yes, and a lot of those people ended up leaving. One of them being Claudio at some point, because Claudio was going to be a guy, and Malachi Black was going to be a guy when he was Aleister Black in WWE. So there were a lot of pieces in place to do interesting business on TV. But Vince went back to his old ways, and it's an audience of one, and that's basically what happened.
Ended up in their favorite place in the building, catering.
Unfortunately.
Here's one thing I really do enjoy: the fact that during title matches we actually get like the NXT-esque version of the introductions.
Yes.
Or the lights dimmer.
It's all about presentation, and they used to do this stuff back in the NWA, or in the AWA, when you would have an arena show, and it would usually for the main event, but they didn't do it for every match. But for the main event or the important matches, they dim the lights. You get the spotlight in the ring because the wrestlers are the stars, and then the referee would have them separate in their other corners. They announce the challenger, they announce the champion, then the lights would go on. And then you have the match to make the match feel important, which is it's small things. But I remember we had this conversation off air months ago, and I said all they have to do to make these championships seem important is just show some history, show that the championships that are on television actually mean something. Exactly. Give a damn about everything that's there. That's all they have to do.
It seemed like they heard us, truth be told, because, I mean, the minute they started showing the promo packages for the U.S. title, it was like, oh, man, we're actually getting this? This is amazing,
Go figure. And there's always something about seeing other matches in one ring when the War Games is another War Games match that's going to come out there. And to see them wrestle in it. I love the visual, and I watched the original War Games match back with that July 4th of 87. And seeing that same spectacle, knowing that there was going to be impending doom later on in the show. So, yes, to see that, I still mark out for just the visual of it.
Got you. I hear you.
The camera work is actually pretty good now. Especially, like I said, being able to see that other ring.
Ooh. Of course. It's shocking to see Shayna Baszler being in a managerial position for Ronda Rousey.
Yes.
And Sami Zayn-esque, is she really going ahead and taking? Oh my god, peeps. To think that she would have been champion 2 years ago, it still sucks, man. It really does still suck.
Yes. It's one of those things that you tend to look at, and it's like, well, what are they trying to do? And it seems like Vince is booking her on the outside, because it seems like Shayna's getting her head kicked in, and she's not even part of the match.
Exactly.
So, good grief. What one of those things that Vince would say? Oh my!
or because of that clothesline. What a maneuver!
What a maneuver! Oh, good grief! I used to hate that as a kid. Call the move what it is. It's not a maneuver. Oh, come on. Yeah. When I was a kid, when I used to listen to Vince McMahon on commentary, and between him and Jesse Ventura, and hearing Jesse Ventura check Vince McMahon every chance he got for me, made my entire weekend. That's how it was as a child watching wrestling and hearing Vince McMahon get checked by Jesse Ventura. Oh yes,
most definitely.
Entertainment personified.
I mean, yeah, you just shut up, McMahon. You know, like, oh man,
Yes.
good times,
Exactly.
good times. But speaking of good times, peeps, I forgot to go ahead and ask you this morning, but it's a good time to go ahead and ask now. What is your most fondest, memorable Survivor Series memory? Like, what is when you think of Survivor Series? What's the one moment that always sticks in your mind, and it's like always congruent? Like,
Unfortunately, the one that continues to rear its ugly head just because of the circumstance is
has to be
the
'97.
Montreal Screwjob. But I have fond memories of the first Survivor Series, mostly because of it being the first and having all of those faces and all of those people in the same place in the same match, and the concept of it. This is an elimination 5-on-5 tag match, and I remember watching it as like this looks like it's going to be a big deal. Now the reason why it was crazy as a wrestling fan is, mind you, you're talking to somebody from the Northeast who was a fan of the NWA, and to have the first Survivor Series pay-per-view go head-to-head with Starrcade 87 as a wrestling fan blows your mind. Now, obviously, we know why it was done, but just to give a little bit of history for those that may not know, for those that you already know, whatever. But if you don't, here's why in a brief synopsis of it. We know that Vince was continuing to go into expanding his product, going into cable companies and trying to get that was a nasty fall.
Especially after Black Tuesday, I believe.
Yes.
Even after all those things, yep.
And knowing what was going on, Vince wanted to get his pay-per-view out there on Thanksgiving, literally to stick it to the NWA and Crockett Promotions, who had Starrcade as their biggest show every Thanksgiving. From the beginning, even before Starrcade was Starrcade, their biggest shows were on Thanksgiving. Go 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon. Afterwards, you eat food and you go to see the wrestling matches, etc. So we fast forward to Starrcade. Vince wanted to actually have his pay-per-view to take that shine off of the NWA's and Jim Crockett Promotions. But what he also did was he told the cable companies who were holding both shows, if you show Starrcade and not the Survivor Series, we're not going to allow you to run WrestleMania on your cable systems. So what ended up happening is, instead of having both shows run congruent to each other, a lot of cable systems just didn't show Starrcade. And what ended up happening is, after Starrcade, the first Starrcade being in 1983, 84, 85, 86, 87, all being on Thanksgiving night, the next year Starrcade was moved to the day after Christmas on a Monday, which was absolutely horrible. So that's what happens when Vince McMahon had the clout that he had with cable providers. And that's one of the reasons why the first Survivor Series to me is the most memorable as far as the importance of it.
Got you. I understand you. But like, you talked about Montreal being like, stuck in your mind. You remember where you were from Montreal?
Yes. I was home and I watched it on pay-per-view, not expecting what happened to happen, and looking at it and like, whoa, what am I watching? It's like, did they really just screw Bret Hart? I'm like, literally. And wondering, talking to other friends and people in the know that we all talked about. That was really a crazy time back then in those days.
Of course.
A crazy time.
Walking into it knowing that, the news that we knew where like most of the fans knowing that like his contract was set to somewhat expire, and that like like, oh man, would you look at that? Speaking of finishers and submissions,
yes,
Ronda Rousey just got Shotzi to tap out due to armor. How nice.
Yes, I'm kind of shocked she didn't rip her arm off and beat her over the head with it. The way that happened.
Seems like Ronda had mercy, huh?
That's sad when that's considered mercy. that shows you exactly how violent she is. If that is considered mercy,
because it seems like she hit a Piper's Pit off the top rope.
Yes,
and then another one just to go ahead and get get the arm part. Like, man, okay.
Yes. It's
Peace. That's mercy.
A lot. Yeah.
Peace. That's mercy. Because she didn't even get the full thing in.
Yeah, and that's literally all she needed to do. They beat her over the head. Oh man. We don't need your arm here.
Yeah, drop you on your back. Why not?
Yes. So there you go. Yeah. As a matter of fact, you got another War Games match coming. We know that we've got Rollins. Wow. This. Based on the fact that all of these participants are involved, they only had 5 matches, 2 War Games matches, which makes sense. That's 10 wrestlers apiece for those matches.
True.
So you got 5 matches on the card, and the Rollins match I feel is intriguing just because of who's involved.
Yes, of course.
And that's going to be the next match. I'm wondering how this does. Now we both earlier this afternoon predicted that Rollins was going to come out of this the winner.
Yes.
I'm wondering how he's going to win. And is anybody else going to interject themselves? Is Theory going to flip out and lose his mind? What will happen? Stay tuned to the next days of our lives. Oh, sorry. That's another venue elsewhere.
I mean, of course.
Yes.
Honestly, I really do solidly think that no one's gonna go ahead and make an appearance, but I do think, like you said, something tells me there's gonna beat a couple of people up after. Yeah, he's gonna become unhinged. Yeah,
and I like that. The extra aggression that they're showing. It shows you that they're taking into consideration what has happened with him going throughout this whole year, between him coming up to the main roster, being looked at as Vince's son, because who's your daddy chants were going all over the place for quite some time, winning the Money in the Bank, and then being looked at as somebody that the only reason why they got their push was because Vince McMahon looked at him as his new shiny toy. And then when Vince pulled away from WWE and retired, that he didn't have that avenue to come back and say, I am going to get that push. Whereas Triple H going to be in moving forward as far as his push, evaluating what he's going to do with his talent. And we've seen that. And as we see going forward, there's still a lot to be shown. That's the one thing that they're going to continue with. And I'm glad about that because he's a star.
Exactly.
Without question. Not only is he a star, I think he's got future champion written all over him. It's just a matter of when. And it's not going to happen in the next 6 months unless Triple H has some sort of grand plan that we're not privy to knowing about. So we'll see.
Of course, we'll see. But I mean, most definitely has to start tonight on War Games. I kid you not. But speaking of War Games, look, they're showing the finette of the grandson of a plumber. How nice is this? Peeps, I mean, they always show it during the premium live events. And I mean, I guess it's just so we don't, leave Cody out of the back of our minds.
Yes.
But I mean, honestly, y'all, you guys already gave us the worst kept secret by knowing that we already knew he was going to be at Mania. Yes. Can you at least go ahead and give us a chance to go ahead and sit there and think that he may not go ahead and show up at, the Rumble? Because now I'm sitting here thinking to myself, hey, he is going to show up at he's going to have to be showing up at the Rumble. Probably number 30. Where's the element of surprise anymore? I don't know, peeps.
Well, that's this is where we are now in the world of social media and the internet. I want you to think about how many really good feuds, storylines have been created that have been dashed aside because it got loose on the internet, and then everybody just decided, you know what, we know about it already. So that would be a great surprise, but everybody knows. And then you see on the show, fans have signs alluding to the rumor that they heard. And then all of a sudden, the rumor becomes the reality, and then it spoils everything. So that's kind of the frustrating part about the time that we live in, based on what they're doing going forward.
Understandable.
Yes.
NXT Deadline 2 weeks away. Peeps, so you gonna go ahead and sit here and actually watch Deadline, or?
I really do want to see Deadline and see how they do it. But going forward, let's see if it's kind of like Stand and Deliver, or kind of like take NXT Takeover show. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to do well.
I understand.
Yeah,
these new Bloodline T-shirts. Oh gosh.
Oh yeah, and they're all, of course,
Peeps,
my favorite color being red.
They're about to stuff my credit card. Yeah, they're really about to stuff my credit card. Oh lord.
Yeah, I talked to him.
And right now, looks like Sami Zayn having a conversation with the tribal chief.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you can hear the audio on this end, Peeps. Let me know if you can.
I can kind of hear it. I'm trying to turn. I'm turning mine up just so slightly.
Gotcha.
He had a huge match. The advantage for tonight's match was on the line. I didn't want to put that on his plate right before the match. He wouldn't even understand.
Apparently, he wants to. From earlier in the show, Roman Reigns said he wanted to, after having a conversation with Jey Uso.
And if I'm being honest, I didn't.
Yeah, he
wanted to look Sami Zayn in the eyes and see if he's telling the truth.
And then he left, and that's the truth.
And I guess we'll find out after this whether Sami is an honorary Uso
or not.
Or does Roman Reigns stick his head in the sand?
He said that I should turn on the bloodline before the bloodline turns on me.
The conversation is really deep.
He's your friend. Was your friend. I get that.
Basically going in and saying something about, well,
this is my family.
You know, he's got to defend what he has to defend, even though he's looking out for Sami Zayn.
Exactly.
Without going into, verbatim, blood is thicker than water.
Exactly.
And I need to know if you're with us or if you're going to stab us in the back out there.
I am with you.
Really deep?
Roman, I am with you, okay? You need to understand.
It's Paul Theatrics in the back for me.
Yes, and the funny thing about this is, Paul doesn't have to say anything at all. He's sitting in the background, sitting in a chair with two belts, not saying a word, and the silence that comes from him is actually the loudest part of this entire deal.
Exactly.
That means the world to me that you took me in as a member of this family. I am not going to let you down tonight. I will not let you down any night. I am with the bloodline.
And if you think about it, Sami Zayn has done more to protect Roman Reigns than anyone else in the bloodline. He's taken finishers, he's taken chair shots, he's taken moves. He's pushed Roman Reigns out of the way of a beating.
Now, honestly, respectfully, Peeps, I'm not saying this in any way out of context. God rest Owen Hart's soul, but Owen Hart could never. With the Nation, I kid you not. The Nation could. If the Nation would have ever hit this peak, do you think Owen would be able to do this? I mean, most definitely. If the storyline was given, the right. I mean, we always knew Owen was always in it for himself. It was like,
yes,
we all knew Sami was the face. Sami started off as a face. It wasn't like he was instantly heel. So what I get from this, it's just like it's just pure base comedy. Oh man, Peeps. This right here, this is like the Mega Powers reforming again. It's like, it's like Jericho, just be like, you know, the essence of Jericho, drink it in, man.
Yes.
You know,
This is Bailey's old persona, being a hugger, because that's
Being a
what happened. Be a hugger.
now, do you think this damages Roman Reigns' credibility? Is just like, you know, a high end, like, you know, in your face type of heel?
It's not
With
going
him
to
being
damage his
open with sounding
credibility
like this?
because at some point he's going to stick Sammy's head in the sand. And I'm borrowing an old Ole Anderson quote from way back when he was part of the Horsemen. Yeah, that's one of the things that I think we are probably bound for. So.
Oh man, Survivor Series press conference, peeps. Who knows? They're getting their own media scrum. How nice.
Oh wow. Let's see where they go with that.
But here comes the Almighty One.
Yes, and for whatever reason, I thoroughly enjoy his opening.
I mean, who doesn't, peeps?
Yes,
From the pyrotechnics.
and the crowd involvement with his fist pumping to the crowd.
Just the on beat and everything. Like, okay.
Yes.
The following contest is a triple threat match for the United States Championship.
But is he a face or is he a heel? Because
This is kind of
He-
like Macho
he
Man
would-
Randy Savage vibes.
I guess in the sense that he does react with the fans. The fans still love him, but he's just overly aggressive.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, WrestleMania goes Hollywood with a full week of events.
That's one person I don't think you want to tick off. Now, I got a funny story about Bobby Lashley. Seeing him in person when
Really?
Lashley was in TNA.
Wow.
They did a show at the Manhattan Center. This was, I would guess, about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I mean, 5 or 6 years ago. They did it was a feud between Bobby Lashley and Kurt Angle, and I can tell you, it was freezing cold outside. I think it was like maybe 25 or 26 degrees outside, and they were going through this whole feud. They're going after each other. The feud are yelling and screaming and going back and forth. And then they were outside in that cold, fighting each other in front of the doors of the Manhattan Center. Lashley, sweaty. Kurt Angle, sweaty. And they're fighting down near the stairs and near the aisle outside, and they're going back and forth fighting, etc. It was really, really crazy. All of those fans wanting to see these guys beat each other's brains in. And
While in the cold.
yes, while in the cold. And eventually, that all got broken up, and then everybody was able to go back, get your, autographs, pictures, etc., etc. And it was interesting because the show was over. All the wrestlers that were there, after we all went in a group. We all leave. We're all outside, and while we're waiting outside to see if anything, if the area clears out before we head to the trains, Lashley was out with his child at the time, and it's kind of weird to see big old Bobby Lashley in kind of like a coat, suit and tie, etc. And he has his child in his arm, and I was like, wow, that was actually a cool image. That's the one thing that I remember from those TNA, because it was TNA TV taping at the Manhattan Center. So yeah, that was actually pretty cool.
Of course. Lashley being Lashley, that's the one thing I can always say about the wrestlers itself. It's like, they carry their persona so well when it comes to being around the fans, but when it comes to, to just being themselves, it's it's always a crazy sight to see.
Yes.
But here's
And
here's someone that actually doesn't go ahead and carry himself the same way. I mean,
Yes.
Seth being Seth.
Yes. And I find it the new trend when you're watching wrestling, the fans with the self-aware signs. Like there was a fan in the aisle as Seth Rollins came down the aisle, and it just said 24-inch pythons. So like the fans, between the video game references and the anime references and the shots at all of the other wrestlers involved, I'm telling you, it's these are the times that are fun about being a wrestling fan, and this is something that you can't lose, because you miss that camaraderie and going out to see other fans, people you've never met, people you don't know, and you have a common interest. Even if you don't like the same wrestler, you all identify as wrestling fans, and you can enjoy the entire show. That's great.
Most definitely right.
Yes.
Man, these fans in Boston.
Yes. Well, Boston is a wrestling fan, a wrestling
Of
town.
course.
And
But I mean,
especially
it-
the WWE. There's decades
Oh,
and
yes.
decades of history between the fans and WWE.
Definitely. It's just like to see. I guess it's just like the way that they're always in tune with Seth Rollins, especially with his theme song. It's like, like anywhere he goes, it's like the minute the song starts playing, it's the chants. It kind of gives me vibes of Fandango back in the day when his song would da 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 da. And you had exactly, you know what I'm talking about, peeps.
Yes.
It's funny. The song went the song went on the charts in England. How does that happen? How did that happen?
Even better. Remember when Eric Young was in TNA before Eric Young won the world title? He would do the fist pump, and he would run around the ring and do the fist pump, and all the fans would do the same thing. Those are the moments that you can't capture away from being in it. You have to be there to understand it, and then describe it to people that don't get it. Yeah,
exactly right.
I'm expecting this match to actually be really good. And what I said before about the Finn Balor AJ match, I told you, based on what I know of these two, that had the potential to be the match of the night. And so far, so good. So let's see if this match joins them up there, and it should.
Hopefully, I mean it should.
Yeah, and it's hard to believe. For all those people that look at Bobby Lashley and say, well, he was green at one point, etc., etc. Bobby Lashley has been wrestling almost 20 years. People don't realize that. He's been in the business for quite some time. And when he left WWE and went to TNA, and that 3-year span that he was in there, and he was world champion, and he was with MVP, and he was part of that group called the Beatdown Clan, and all they were doing was just beating people up and throwing people through fences and putting people in the hospital and not the medical facility.
Oh, of course.
Call it.
Good times.
Yes, that was where Lashley seemed to harness and hone this current iteration of himself. And when he came back to WWE, it shows, because now this dude is a walking weapon.
Oh yes. I mean, kind of shout out to to the walking weapon out in TNA. Oh
Yes.
man, yeah, Josh Alexander.
Yes.
Oh man.
You saw what I did.
Exactly. Theory isn't looking too bad so far in this match. I'm not gonna lie to you, peeps.
Yeah. Well, at least not until that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Lashley being Lashley.
And Lashley is just going to do Lashley type things. Good grief.
Such an impressive athlete.
The more I see Lashley in the ring, the more he looks like a walking, talking action figure. I mean, I don't see a regular amount of body fat on the guy. It's crazy.
It's all muscle, man. It's like it's no you. Lashley's a different breed, and the man's been like this since 2006.
Yes,
I remember when he used to hold the U.S. title, like back during his like exclusive days on SmackDown.
Yes,
it's shocking enough. I mean, Lashley's always been this built.
Yes.
You know, back in the days when he used to rock the headband, the Speedos. I mean, man, good time.
Yes.
I still have to go ahead and relate to the good times of Ruthless Aggression eras.
Yes. Yeah. And it's amazing when you watch the kinds of matches that we're used to seeing, and seeing how a lot of this has actually evolved going forward with a lot of the moves. So I think we're going to actually see really good wrestling, good storytelling within the match the pacing should be well, and it should prepare everybody for the War Games.
Oh yeah. But peeps, I don't know if you caught that. Did you see how Lashley actually picked the man up from the other side of the barricade and really just put him over his shoulder?
Yes.
Lord of, dang it, Lashley. Okay.
Yes. Go figure. Good grief.
They're really trying to turn the TD Guard into a car wreck. Okay.
Yeah. Let's just hope that Big Daddy Vince doesn't come after us.
Wait, is that a spit of blood? Is it?
Wow. I think so. It just might be.
I may be wrong.
Or maybe it's just a piece of Lashley's boot. Or a piece of the tape from his, well, I guess we'll find out as soon as they get another camera shot on it. But
Yeah.
it looks like, whew, yeah, like Theory
Has lost it. Unhinged.
Yes, he's just flipped out. He just picked up the steel steps and hit Lashley in the head with it. Oh, fluid motion. And the more that we see Austin Theory work in ring, and you see his work rate continue at the pace that it's at, the more impressed you get.
Oh yes.
I love this. No wasted motion from Austin Theory. The pinfall attempt didn't work. Continue. And impressed with this new attitude of Austin Theory. All business now.
And when you see the pacing, I'm looking at what Rollins is going to do going forward in this match, because we know Theory is going to mostly go after Rollins, because even though Theory is a big, strong guy,
Oh yeah.
the conventional wisdom is you keep Lashley outside, keep him away from the ring, throw him into the 8th row, handcuff him to an old lady, do something to keep him from being in the ring. And then you go ahead and you take out Rollins as best you can. At least that's what I would think that Theory would be doing right now. Wow.
You just caught that roll up, huh?
Yes.
Theory and Rollins kicks in one. Remember, triple threat rules as well. The champion does not have to be involved in the decision.
Now, I'll ask you a question, since you brought this up before. Of all of the WWE's major 4 pay-per-views, whether it's Survivor Series or Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, which one is your favorite pay-per-view just in general, and why?
Well, I mean, I can rank them, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I would put SummerSlam at 4.
Okay.
And SummerSlam has intrigued me. In some stances, it hasn't. I remember the first SummerSlam I ever watched was SummerSlam. I may be mistaken. It was either 2005 or 2006. The only reason I can remember that is because the match that caught my attention the most was Undertaker versus JBL for the undisputed title at the time, or the WWE Championship, but of course it was just the undisputed title. And what I remembered is, I believe Taker lost the match,
Okay.
and JBL was trying to go ahead and leave, but Taker somehow got a hold of him. And what I remembered is Taker chokeslammed him through the roof of his limousine. You see, I think you probably remember what I'm talking. Okay, so that was my first ever. That was the first ever SummerSlam I watched, and of course I've always tried to go ahead and stick through with it, but I was just never fond of it. So that was that was 4th. Second, no, actually 3rd. 3rd would have to be I'd say Survivor Series. Survivor Series would have to be 3rd. Of course, Survivor Series, it's, around Thanksgiving, so of course I'm on break. So I get to go ahead and sit there and, watch it, of course. But, for me, it's, still, it's like, okay, cool, SmackDown versus Raw, whatever. It still doesn't do it for me. It doesn't do it for me. The Rumble, of course, at a second, because it's the Rumble. It's always like the preamble to Mania season. This is what kicks it off. You're always there for that, and of course the elements of surprise. The first ever Rumble that I actually got to go ahead and see, Of course, you know, way above my time frame. You know, 3 years before I was born, Royal Rumble 2000. That whole pay-per-view started it off for me, and I kid you not, I always tune in to watch it back again and again and again. From Cactus Jack's match with Triple H for the, you know, WWF title, to Mark Henry having to go ahead and stop Mae Young from mooning the whole crowd at the Garden, to
Don't get me started with the whole Mae Young stuff. The fact that she gave birth to a hand. I'm never gonna get over that.
A hand.
Typical Vince McMahon sludge. Oh. Okay. Yeah.
Oh man. But of course, last but not least, number 1, Mania. I mean, you know, that's Christmas to me, peeps. Yes. I value Mania more than I value Christmas nowadays. That tells you enough.
That's comfort food. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that for me, that's my favorite holiday. Of course, it's not a national holiday, but that is my favorite holiday. So I mean, that's all it is for me. But I mean, to go ahead and answer the question that I kind of actually asked you, fondest Survivor Series memory. I always tune in. I always watch this one. Survivor Series 03. Of course, it was the first ever inaugural Elimination Chamber match. Michaels having to go ahead and win that title after, you know, being away from, you know, an illustrious major title for so long in the WWE. And, you know, that whole pay-per-view as a whole, with Heyman turning on Brock to go ahead and side with the Big Show, to 3-minute warning in the Dudley Boys and Jeff Hardy. Oh man.
I'm giving you exactly 3 minutes.
Yeah,
I mean 3 minutes. Yes.
It was so funny, peeps. It was so funny.
Rosie and Jamal. Good grief.
God rest their souls. I mean, man.
Yeah.
But peeps, it's funny because that whole time having to go ahead and sit there, it's like the 3 minute stuff. There's always so many things when it comes to Eric Bischoff. There's like 3 things that always hit my mind. Number 1, it's always because he started off the Elimination Chamber. Number 2, of course, did somebody say 3 minutes?
Yes.
And last but not least, the one that most people forget and try their hardest to forget, HLA. That's all I'll say.
Oh, yes. And that's all you need to say. I think everybody knows what HLA is, and if you don't, Google it. Because we're not going to tell you on this end right now.
Yeah, no need for me to go ahead and tell you. But Austin Theory looks like he's about to go ahead and try to win this.
Wow.
Oh man, he has Lashley on his shoulders.
Talk about strength.
Oh, here it goes. Hurt lock.
Will he get him?
Oh, it's locked in. It's locked in.
Whoa.
Oh wait,
he's pulling a Brett Piper.
Oh. Rollins. Frog splash.
Ref.
Oh my god.
The ref was out of position. The ref was out of position, Gorilla.
Oh man.
It was a Phoenix splash that was missed. Rollins landed on his feet. Theory throws him out of the ring. He goes for that rolling neck breaker. Tries to go for the pin. Got broken
off the counter.
After he tried to do the A-Town down. Got put into the hurt lock. Kicked his way in. Countered it. Rolled him into a potential pin. Picture Bret Hart, Roddy Piper type pin from WrestleMania 8. And then we got the frog splash from Rollins to break it up. So yeah, that was the sequence that you missed if you didn't see.
What an amazing combo! I mean,
yes. I'm really loving the work rate in this match.
Oh yes, it's amazing. So fast paced. This is what I enjoy. What a forearm!
Yes.
Oh, caught that. Ooh.
Is he going for a pedigree?
Imagine.
Oh
no way! No way! No way! No way! No way!
Lashley has the hurt lock on both opponents,
and it gets broken up. I mean, wow!
That is an insanely
what a visual!
Man.
What a visual!
Yes.
Super kick!
Oh.
Ooh.
Good grief. He went for the forearm to the back of Theory's neck. And
This is an amazing match, peeps. I mean,
yes, it is.
The title held by dozens of WWE Hall of Famers.
And now there's a minute
Imagine.
of contemplation.
Oh man, impulsive thoughts.
Both men in position.
Wow.
Use Theory.
What a sequence of moves. Rollins went for the stomp, but he stepped on the back of Theory to get the stomp, and it turned into almost like a leg drop. I guess he couldn't get the full stomp on last.
Imagine, peeps. Is this what I think?
Ooh,
Falcon Arrow.
wow. Oh
Spear.
man, what a
Oh
sequence.
my god! No! Oh my god!
Wow.
Oh my god!
What a sequence. A Falcon Arrow after the superplex. And as he goes for the Falcon Arrow, while Theory is in midair, Lashley spears him, but Theory rolls up Rollins and gets the pin. Wow. We were both wrong. And as I said before, depends on what they planned on doing with Theory. I gotta say this. I could not be happier to be wrong in a match in quite some time as far as guessing who would win.
No.
Honestly, I
honestly.
have to say this was one really good match.
It was. I mean, to see the top rope superplex, then go into the Falcon Arrow, then have the spear, and somehow Theory falls over, gets the pin,
Yes.
and the look on Lashley's face while having a little spat of blood going off of him.
And then of course the shot of the guys in the crowd.
Yeah, they're
Where you
just
can
like,
see
what
the guy,
the
he's
heck?
like, what the what?
Like, why? Just why?
Yes.
Okay, Theory is champion.
So-
Listen, I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it.
And Lashley opened up that
Lashley-
cut again.
Uh-huh.
Because remember, he got cut on Raw, was it last week,
Yup.
on his forehead. I think he reopened that same cut. But yes, that was, without question, a really good match.
Wow.
Really good.
I'm the Miz, and
Oh, man. Here comes another Miz Vinette.
Yes.
Can't be mad at it.
No, you can't. No, you can't. But I have to say, one of those things that we anticipated were obviously good work rate for this match. We knew that
Of
they were
course.
going to give it their all, and how they incorporated the opportunistic mindset of Austin Theory to go along with the rest of this match. That
True.
was really well done. I cannot complain at all. That was a fun match to watch, and the
No, it really
outcome
was.
was also well timed. It was also well done, and
Oh, yes.
I think when we look on Monday, when they show the replays of the still shots of what you missed, we
Mm-hmm.
should have watched it on Peacock.
Like we really care about the still shots. I hate the still shots.
But
That's
it
what-
does
that's
make,
what caused-
it does make for a pretty open.
Of course, but I mean that this is what stopped me from going ahead and having to go ahead and not watch the pay-per-views. Like, like literally, you remember back then when you actually wanted to see a Cena match, and they,
Yes.
you know, you thinking you're about to go ahead and actually see the actual clip, and they stop it at exactly when he's about to hit the AA, and you're just like, you kidding
But
me?
yet you can still hear the commentary after the move, and you can hear the audio from that
It
point
doesn't-
on. It's
Peeps, I'm a
silly.
part, true, but we're part of a generation that enjoys visuals, so it's just like,
Yes.
ah, man. Somehow I still don't understand what was up with that whole Miz thing when he won the title from I believe it was Drew, and then like literally the next week he just drops it to like Bobby out of nowhere. So what's the whole point of? I don't get it.
I believe that was a reward for him re-signing with the company at the same time. So they figured we'll give him that one more reign before Lashley jobbed him out. I mean, I'm figuring we'll reward you with having your second WWE Championship, which lasted a lot longer than his first WWE Championship reign.
Yeah, of course.
So I think that's what that is. And now I'm seeing the New Day selling the new
Holiday merch.
Yes.
Huh.
By the way, for those old school cats that are into video games, I'm loving that New Day shirt that looks like the cover of Bad Dudes. So anybody that's ever played Bad Dudes in the arcade,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's what that New Day shirt looks like. So if you ever played that coin-op beat 'em up Bad Dudes, that's what they're showcasing. So yeah,
Countdown begins. Huh.
here we go. What kind of crazy nonsense is Kofi Kingston going to do at this year's Royal Rumble?
I was just about to ask the same question.
I'm wondering, is he going to do a head spin all the way around? Like he's going to get chucked over the top rope. He's going to land on his head, and he's going to spin like a top around the railing. Then he's going to do a backflip acai moonsault back into the ring.
You just love the backflip acai's. I mean, peeps, man.
Yes, the backflip acai DDT of Doom. That's what we need to see.
Oh man.
Yes.
But it's crazy, peeps, to think that, like, you know, they actually sold out this year.
Yes. Wow. Well, we definitely know if War Pigs gets played over the air, we definitely know copyrights will be stricken all over the place. So,
Talk about
yes.
it. Talk about it. Talk
Yeah.
about it.
That's what the WWE is doing.
Oh,
right now.
man.
And
The
that
siren is up.
Yes.
The lights are on.
Yes.
And the cage is lowering.
Oh yeah. And
What we
I
all came
remember
for.
all of the great memories of previous War Games matches, and it seems like they're going to bring up some more Bloodline stuff.
This is how you do it.
Yes.
Nah, like I said, I would. But I saw everything I needed to see.
All right. Somebody looks ticked off.
Notice that when he was hugging Sammy, he kind of had a sinister look on his face.
Yes, he did.
Which leads me to believe, is he going to turn on Sammy tonight?
Who knows?
Well, only one way to find out, ladies and gentlemen. War Games
Stay
is
tuned.
up next. Last match of the night. Oh, man. All the production for this thing, I mean...
That is what the old
Oh,
school
man.
War Games is supposed to look like.
No vignette, no promo package, just straight into it.
Yes. And that's what you have to do. The match sells itself.
Oh, peeps, look at his t-shirt.
Wow.
Oh, man.
For those that aren't
Wow.
watching, for those that are not watching the premium live event, Kevin Owens is wearing a vintage shirt that is a picture of the American Dream Dusty Rhodes with his hands clasped together, and on the bottom it just says the Bionic Elbow. If you don't mark out for that,
And peeps, you notice he's rocking an armband. He even has
Yes.
oh my
yes,
god.
you can tell this
This
has
is-
Triple H written all over it.
This is just amazing. I mean,
Yes.
wow.
Yes.
Nah, that's
No
great.
sword.
That is great.
Drew McIntyre's come out with no
No
hand-
sword? No
nothing.
sword?
No sword.
And not even with the pearl that he got from the Loch Ness monster? Let me stop.
Yes.
Oh, man.
That's right, donkey. That's right. Yes.
Oh man.
Oh man, this is gonna be something. If for 1 second I could see blood in this match, but I,
I
don't
just
think
want
we
to.
are.
I just
Yes.
want to, man. Oh man, Chris Morton back in the cut. Chris, how you doing, man?
I had to eat dinner. I didn't think you guys would want to watch me eat. Although, have you heard of a mukbang before? You know what a mukbang is?
Oh,
we
yes,
have.
yes.
We have.
Right.
Yes.
I guess I was in one of those like communities on wrestling on Facebook. and I encountered this girl, and long story short, she told me she does a mukbang on YouTube. And I was like, I'd never heard of it before. I didn't know what it was. And I just heard the word bang, and I'm like, wait, what are you doing on YouTube?
Yes.
Midgets and
If you don't know what it is, it does sound like something you would probably Google first before you ask someone about.
Right. That's just crazy to me. By the way, I did hear the backstage with Roman and Sammy was incredible. It was a perfect setup for what might happen.
Yes.
Yes.
Most definitely. But it seems
it's
like
all-
Butch is
it's
gonna
all
be
pace.
starting it off.
Oh, good grief.
We call him Pete
It's
Dunne.
Pete Dunne. I can't call him Butch. It's Pete
Listen, as
Dunne.
much as I hate it too, peeps, I guess
The
I just
same-
have to go by it.
The same way I refuse to call Walter anything other than Walter.
No, first of all, it's Walter. Get it right.
It's Walter. Yes. Just remember, my match of the year last year was Ilya Dragunov versus Walter. So for those that really care, that know what I think of Walter and not Gunther, yeah, it's a shame.
Okay, so what did you guys think of the last finish?
Oh, I thoroughly enjoyed that. That was
I went crazy
one of
for
the
that.
most interesting finishes. The way that it was done, the pacing, the timing, and it was believable. I liked
Here's
it.
what bothered me most about it was the fan reaction, and it's not like they don't like Theory as a heel. There's a lot of blowback on Theory, like they just don't like him, no matter face or heel, which I don't get. We talked about that earlier, Phenomenal One. It's like I don't understand. This guy checks every box, Pete's Nage.
Yes, and hey, he is as close to a developing version of MJF, just without the savant ideology behind it. MJF
better
is just on
worker.
another level.
He's a 20 times better worker than MJF, and that's not a slight to MJF. That's just how ahead of the game Theory is in the ring. Everything
Yes.
he does, his timing, his selling, his facials, his just.
I'm gonna give you an analogy. Is that he has Barry Windham like in-ring awareness
He does.
as far as drawing moves, getting to the fans, etc. As far as the way he works his match and builds his match in layers, that's something that Barry Windham used to do on a regular basis. So this is what I'm seeing out of Theory. That's high praise coming from me.
If Roman and the Bloodline can count on anyone, it's Sami Zayn. It's simply been an effort on the part of Kevin Owens to sow
try
Were you
to
surprised
Chief.
that they took the title off of Rollins?
the Bloodline split.
I'm not as surprised. I was just shocked to think that, like, you know, because I thought walking into this, you know, this whole morning, I was like, you know, maybe they're just gonna have, you know, Theory, you know, get built up a little more. You know, I didn't think so soon. But I mean, you know, if that's how they want to do it, I mean, you know, I'm all right with it. You know, I'm not really shocked. It's just like, oh, you know, too early, you know, a little too early. But I mean,
People have talked about Seth Rollins' career in WWE in terms of the build with the Triple H and everything. And then after that, when they turned him, and then the fans turned against him, and then he was kind of like in limbo for a long time, and they didn't know what to do with him. Now they have the fans back behind him again. A lot of it to do with the song, of course, don't get me wrong. But he's at that point now where he could become a main eventer again. However, they go and do this tonight. I'm trying to understand what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, I think this is their way of getting that belt off of Rollins to maybe push him in a direction that doesn't have secondary championship on it. Maybe the thought process is to push him to a teased main event with Roman Reigns. Not to say that he's going to actually beat him, because we kind of know that championship is pretty much booked up from here until WrestleMania for whatever they're going to do with it. But the mindset is now they're going to have him go back and forth and over this U.S. championship, but at the same time knowing that he's a potential challenger for Roman Reigns. They can build that toward, Royal Rumble as a main event. Oh, he's going to get a championship shot. It works.
By the way, isn't it funny to think about how long Uso has been in the company for, yet in this match, Pete Dunne has more experience in this actual match.
Yeah, go figure.
Imagine. By the numbers.
And I'm loving the all red. Can't complain about that. Red being my favorite color.
What are they doing? Why 40 seconds? I feel like I'm watching a bad UFC fight and nothing happens for the first minute.
I felt like the opening to Rock Cena 1. Like, I mean, jeez, the stare off.
Yeah. And the thought process, I guess, is if this is a feud, why would they be kind of grappling until you see what Butch is doing, which is literally trying to rip the hands and fingers and ligaments off, which is one of the things that Marty Scurll used to always do, and used to always get that chant, "You sick bleep, you sick bleep." So
yeah, well, little did we know that Marty Scurll was a sick bleep outside of the
exactly,
ring.
Exactly.
This is a family show, I take it. That's why you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Jay's got to suffer through at least 3 more minutes of this. Oh, God.
Ooh.
Right, that's the thing. We talk about cage matches, war games. Utilize the cage as a weapon. You don't need weapons in the ring.
Exactly. And as I said before, if you're not going to have blood, then the match has to be over the top violent in some way, shape, or form. Like there was the match. There was a Hell in a Cell match years ago. You probably remember this between, I believe it was Chris Jericho. Was it Jericho and Triple H or? Yeah,
How
they
am I
had a
going to
Hell in a
remember
Cell
it if you
match.
don't remember it?
And
Jericho and
there-
Hunter, you're talking Judgment Day, right?
Yes, yes. And there was no blood in it, but it was over the top violent. And that's what you have to have in a match that has a cage. Because under the Vince McMahon regime, the cage became a cliche. Oh, they're going to go into a cage. Okay. And it was literally a match that you had inside of a fence. A cage match has to either start a feud or end a feud. And it has to be that kind of element of danger in the match. And a lot of those matches didn't have that, other than people diving off the cage. Anyone can do that, but work the feud into the match by using the cage. That's something that's almost like a lost art nowadays.
And we've always hated that whole escape the cage thing. The cage is there to pin or submit, which they now have that option at least.
Yes.
But the whole escaping is stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, especially like what we used to see back in the Crockett days, where Flair would be in a cage match, and he was trying to escape the cage not to win the match.
Right.
He was trying to escape the cage to get away from the beating he was getting during that entire match, which makes much more sense than, oh well, let's start the match, ring the bell, oh let me get out of this cage. It doesn't make any sense.
And like you talked about with the roof of the cage, that's still missing. I'm surprised Triple H hasn't put a roof on it yet.
Yes.
But if you remember the classic spot in the one, I forget, maybe War Games 91, when Sid powerbombs Brian Pillman, and then blatantly, like you could hear it, are you okay?
Yes. Yes. It's amazing that that Pillman only got the injury that he got.
Right.
But that kind of forever cemented Sid as a dangerous worker. Like, what are you doing? So, and then for people that maybe this is the first couple of times that they're watching War Games matches, there have been a numerous amount of injuries in these matches. And to me, the one that sticks out the most is from the first War Games with James J. Dillon, who was put in the Doomsday Device by the Road Warriors. Now, mind you, the original War Games, as we said before, had a fence on the top of the cage. It was a roof over the cage, so they couldn't do the full Doomsday Device. So they modified it. Animal picked up J.J. Dillon, the manager of the Horsemen, kind of like in a back suplex position.
Right.
Hawk jumped off the top rope to go for the clothesline, and then as he came down, J.J. Dillon's arm literally snapped, in the cage. You could hear the bone break when he hit the mat. And J.J. Dillon to this day has a hump in his arm because of the way that the arm healed. And those are the kinds of things that when you watch War Games, that's the kind of element of danger that you need to feel when you're watching.
I mean, still, I mean, in the world that we currently live in now, peeps, it's so hard to go ahead and want to, get back to those days where, you felt as if, the element of violence would exist inside of War Games in 2022. As much as I would enjoy to see it, they'd shoot that down as, with all their power and might. But I mean, hey, I think we're all open to it.
Yes. As opposed to the legacy of violence that Samoa Joe did when he was in TNA. He was walking around with a giant meat cleaver threatening folks. I mean, that was absolutely insane. So,
talk about it.
I don't know what TNA was thinking back then. I digress. Oh, there's a first I digress. I just realized that.
on a watch party too, peeps.
Yes,
man.
on a watch party. Go
it?
figure.
Do you guys listen to Taz on commentary? Does he have any idea what he's saying?
There are times when Taz actually sounds good, and then there are times when Taz will kind of back away and, huh? What did he say?
It's funny because I think just this past Saturday during Full Gear, I heard him say "I digress," and I was about to text Peeps, and I was about to text him, and I was like, "Peeps, he did the thing! He did the thing!" I was about to go ahead and pull the whole Leonardo DiCaprio at the TV, like.
It's funny. I actually had a friend of mine who watched and heard the same thing, and he said, well, where's your 10 cents? Aren't you supposed to get 10 cents for each time that somebody busts a trademark?
You guys got to listen to the broadcast during commercial breaks. If you have the Fight TV access, which I do via the internet, I'll send you guys some sites. Shivani and Taz are hilarious during the commercial break. Shivani trolls Taz, which is mind-blowing, but of course it's to a smaller audience. Taz was talking about his career and his height in the ring. I forget what his comparison was to, and he said something about 5'9", and so Shivani goes more like 5'7". It's just
Oh man, I'm so looking forward
we can
to that.
attest to that because we were at an ECW show way back when in Staten Island and saw the main event of the show was Taz versus Bam Bam Bigelow. Taz really is short. People don't realize just how short he is, but he's stocky and thick. But looking at him on TV, although he may appear, short, he doesn't appear like tiny. He was legitimate like 240 at the time.
right. Well, his legs are the size of tree trunks. That's why. His lower body.
And it's amazing that he broke his neck as thick as his neck was.
Right.
So, yeah.
Peeps, I don't know if you're paying attention, but a cool little theatric spot just happened here. The minute the buzzer just went off to go ahead and let Jimmy out, and somehow Roman just said, "Listen, no, you stay here. Send Sammy out."
Yes.
Now Sammy Uso chants are ringing out in the TD Garden.
This is intriguing. He's walking slowly, kind of meandering.
What a way to test the man's loyalty.
Yes.
Well, yes and no. I mean, Owens isn't in the ring right now.
True.
Well, we'll see when he eventually does come in. What happens?
Because who knows? With a minute 48 left, maybe, just maybe, they go ahead and they send Kevin out.
Wow. He's log rolling him in the middle of the ring with his feet. Well, these fans are really up.
And Sami Zayn taking the fight down to Holland. Rich turning things around with a couple of uppercuts.
Wow. Did I just see a punch?
Yup.
Whoa, did I see another punch?
Nate, Balor and AJ were throwing punches, and it was good to see.
Yes, it was. Oh, it looks like we got some drama here. It looks like main event Jey Uso.
Oh man, here comes Butch.
Looks like they were exchanging recipes.
Nice.
You got to get on the same page if you're going to survive in this. Notice how Butch immediately clutched at his left arm after delivering that moonsault. Look at the power of Ridge Holland. Down goes Sammy and
Good
Jay.
grief. Boy, Ridge Holland is a big human
Less than a
being.
minute.
Talk about it.
And
Boy, I tell you.
have another member of their team inside the War Games structure.
As you've heard the expression, a Haas fight, that's literally what he's a one-man Haas fight, just waiting to beat someone up.
See, him just lifting two people like that makes sense for him. When you see Matt Jackson doing a double Northern Light suplex,
Yes.
I just want to turn the TV off.
I definitely agree. It's
Don't blame you one bit.
certain spots that are done. That would be the equivalent of seeing Rey Mysterio body slam Andre the Giant.
Right.
It's not going to happen, you know.
Oh man, look, we got Hot Rod in the cut here. Just to kind of go ahead and sending out some comments. He says this. Well, look at this, an Oreo cookie panel.
That's
Morton,
so
thank
bad.
God you brought some Uzi to the show. COVID. Really? Huh.
Oh, good grief.
Oh man.
Peeps Nate, I used to say that. But phenomenal one with your uncle that we were the Oreo on Saturday afternoon. I always used to say that.
Oh, boy.
That's something. Oh man. Really called you guys the Oreo? That's crazy.
Yes. The cream in the violet Oreo sandwich.
Speaking of which, when is your uncle going to grace us with his presence?
I say the same thing, man. I say the same thing. Sometimes I feel as if, you know, due to the fact that he calls himself the Phenom, you know, he comes out once in a blue moon. You know, hopefully sooner or later, you know, we'll have him out here. Hopefully sooner or later.
One day he will show.
One day he'll mysteriously just pop out of nowhere, you know, purple haze and everything, rolling his eyes backwards and just says, "I'm here." You know, we'll see. We'll see.
Yes. I can actually see that too. Oh, there you go. Use the cage, and that's exactly what they're doing.
To your advantage.
Using the cage.
Here we go. Fireman's carry right into the cage. Ooh, talk
Like
about it.
like a lawn dart.
As the clock ticks down to another bloodline entrant. Oh, and a belly-to-belly throw.
Wow.
Where's Brock Lesnar when you need him?
McIntyre. McIntyre gonna send Sami Zayn flying across.
Grief.
So what
Suplex
are they
City it
doing
is.
right now with Karrion Kross? I haven't, like I said, I haven't been watching.
Well,
So he was.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, he was in a feud with Drew, of course. Seems like that feud kind of like, you know, ended after Crown Jewel, and they kind of put him like, you know, into this like, you know, whole storyline now with Madcap Moss, where it's kind of like a couples type feud where I think it's who is it?
It's
Is it Emma?
Madcap and Emma.
And,
It looks like Emma is trying to canoodle her way with him, giving him compliments, etc. Now, the thing is, I like Madcap, his in-ring work, but his character is generic as heck. So, they're going to have to do something with him.
But Nate, by the way, not to be confused with Don Carnoodle.
Yes, go figure. Rest in peace.
Now with Drew hung up.
Oh, man.
Ridge knocked off the ropes. Butch climbs to the top.
What are your thoughts on Jim Ross now calling a lot less of the action, especially on the pay-per-view when he did half the show?
Yeah, he's kind of relegated himself to doing Rampage, because he doesn't do, unless it's a big match on Dynamite, for the most part, he's just doing Rampage. And I think that because of his schedule, his age, you know, him recovering from his cancer, his skin cancer that he had, maybe he thinks that it works better for him. And when he does work, he's not calling all of the match. He's doing color spots for the most
Which
part.
is odd, considering he's never been in the ring.
Yeah.
I mean, is he the only guy that can do that because he's grandfathered in, so to speak? Like, what other guy could go be a color commentator that's never been in a ring?
True, but at the same time, he was, before he became a commentator, he
He's a
was a
referee.
referee.
I know.
So he can call, he can do that, and it works. You know, he's got the voice to be able to do that. So
But I still say that They could get rid of Excalibur and put Ian Riccaboni in that spot every week. It would be so
Ian
much
is
better.
Ian is great. I love listening to Ian Riccaboni. He is absolutely great.
Do you
And
know
it looks
if
like they're going to the
Triple H
weapons.
Did Triple H try to bring Morrow back at any point?
If I'm not mistaken, I think he might have extended a hand to him sometime back. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's probably content right now with what he's doing.
Which is, I don't even know what Morrow's doing right now.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I did hear him doing either boxing or he did an
That would make
MMA match.
Yeah, he's on
in the last
Showtime now.
month. Yeah,
he's
been
on Showtime.
doing Bellator. So, yeah.
I mean, Sammy saved him a couple of times already in this match. Jay still obviously not trusting Sami Zayn.
I mean, obviously he wouldn't work anyway with Corey Graves. If you remember the history there.
Oh, yeah. And he definitely doesn't have to worry about the JBL right now, which I find interesting. But, like I
Most
said,
definitely not.
Morrow is not in the company anymore, and JBL being brought back to be the mouthpiece of Baron Corbin.
What do you
Oh,
think?
man.
Isn't that horrible? That's horrible, right?
It's weird. It's like he doesn't need JBL.
I mean,
yet
it's not,
JBL
guys.
doesn't need Corbin.
I mean, truth be told, it's not as horrible as JBL needing a new seamstress. Let's be for real here.
Good point.
Exactly. You get it. You get it.
Yeah.
You referenced all the years I've been watching wrestling. There was a period, I kid you not, when JBL was champion, I stopped watching. I couldn't take him. I never thought of him as a main eventer. I hated that run, and I just stopped watching for that whole period.
He
Really?
was WWE champion, I think 6 months. That was a long period, a long stretch of him being champ. But a lot of people looked at him as, well, he didn't earn it being champ. He got it because he was friends with Vince McMahon and the family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And the Brutes will go a man up in 10 seconds.
I personally thought that the whole JBL run was actually pretty decent. And of course, it was there to build up John Cena, who eventually took the belt from him at WrestleMania.
Oh, man.
And here comes
KO.
KO with the. I have to get that shirt. That Dusty Rhodes
That shirt-
Bionic Elbow
shirt's
T-shirt.
amazing.
I need to get that.
Here comes the chairs.
Yes.
Funny,
This
Hot
is-
Rod went ahead and said this in the chat. He said, Morton, get the tables.
See, this is the thing that I don't like about this War Games match. You don't need all these weapons.
Nope.
If that was the case, then they didn't need the cage.
Exactly.
The weapons just neutralize the importance of the cage, unless there's something else that's going to happen that I'm not aware of later on in this match.
And I'm disappointed in Triple H for allowing this to happen. He should, like, if there's an agent going over the match, Triple H should be privy to what's going to happen in the match and go, no, let's not do that. It's too much. Like, someone
Work the
should.
injury angles. Work the hatred between these guys. If somebody smuggled in brass knuckles or a chain or
Right.
maybe something like that, that works.
Exactly.
But 5 chairs and a table is a bit much. For a match where they keep telling you the ultimate weapon is the cage, to keep people in and keep outside interference from getting into the cage. They've already neutered it by taking the roof off. And now
So
you've
here
got
comes
all
that
these
moment.
weapons in.
And you're essentially doing everything wrong that the competition does.
Yeah. Oh, that was a nasty chair shot to the back. Between Owens getting a chair shot from Jimmy Uso.
Have we ever seen somebody run through friends and allies in this business as fast as Kevin Owens does it? KO is simply trying to get in between the bloodline. Oh! And sow seeds of dissent.
And look at McIntyre. The vertical suplex. Delivered to
Some
Sami
people
Zayn.
would wonder why anybody would do a wrestling move inside of a match where it's all brutality and carnage, et cetera, et cetera. Outside of maybe a body slam here or there, it should be rake across the cage, turn the face, use the cage as a cheese grater, get some color, do what you can, and just pummel people.
You sound
I
like
guess
we should. You think we should be agents on this match?
Yes, we probably should. Good grief.
I don't know what conversation is taking place backstage where there's not a supervisor to the agent going, "No, we shouldn't do that," especially in the other channel. I mean, more than this. It's
Yes,
like,
and even though a lot of the other matches that we've seen have been agented pretty well, if you want to call that as an actual word,
right.
the company misses a lot of the timing that Pat Patterson had, especially with the Royal Rumble. One thing about Pat Patterson that people don't realize is that he was one of the people that were very instrumental in working timing and finishes and how to construct a match, how to pace a match. And that's missed with Pat Patterson being gone. So now that's an art that has to be learned through experience. And we're seeing that for the most part on the fly. Now, that's not to say that we don't see
a wrestling guy who had to learn
Yes.
entertainment. But the question is, did anyone ever listen or pay attention to what Pat was doing? Who's still there? Probably not.
Yes. Yeah. And even more so, Kevin Dunn is still there. And we've seen more than enough camera cuts of, well, there's something going on in the ring, and then they go zoom out to a fan. Like, I can understand you want to get fan reaction, but I want to see what's going on in the ring.
Wait. To be fair though, the NWA used to do that all the time. Cut to a fan at the worst time possible. Why
yes.
did you just cut to the fan?
Yes. Like, wait a minute. What? Oh, no. Yeah. They used to do it a lot. So.
Oh, by the way, did you notice Pete Dunne just threw a forearm in a cage match where everything is legal?
Yes. And his hands are taped. That's even worse. His hands are taped and he's throwing forearms. Okay, here we go.
Oh yeah.
Fists. There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes. Solo Sikoa and Kevin Owens are trying to literally KO each other. There you go. You know better than to throw a Samoan, kayfabe Samoan into the cage because of the kayfabe 4-inch thick cranium that the Vince McMahon WWE used to always come up with.
Well, it's funny because it kind of gave you an anime-esque showdown the minute Solo turned around. Not on the metal beam. Oh, gosh.
I have to say it. What a maneuver. There's carnage and bodies everywhere. And Sikoa.
Well, that's your finest. Here comes Sheamus.
Nate, we were talking about Jacob Fatu earlier and how amazing his presence would be with the Bloodline, but unfortunately he's locked up to an MLW deal.
Yeah, it's not that he's not getting out of that anytime soon.
By choice, he's not locked up.
Yes,
I mean he wants to be there.
Yeah, and he's happy where he is. I think if in given time, if he ever did decide to go to the WWE, then there would be a lot of questions about nepotism in the WWE going forward. Because it's like, if you are Samoan or part of this bloodline, you almost got an instant push.
Oh, that stare down was serious, peeps.
Wow. Do you see that shiner on the eye of...
Uh-huh.
Wow. And Sami Zayn trying to keep Sheamus from getting inside of the cage by holding onto the door. Like, no, you're not getting in there. No, you're not. Oh, yes, I am.
There we go.
By the way, just like JBL, I have never understood Sheamus ever. I don't get it.
Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed Sheamus's career, and even more so, the last 6 months, he's given off some of the best matches of his career. And
not wrong, especially that match with Gunther.
Oh yes.
Or should I say, Walter?
There you go.
I don't know. I think he's like the prototypical WWE cookie cutter wrestler that doesn't do anything. I don't know.
I guess everybody has their own taste.
True. I mean, my perception for him changed over time. I really wasn't like, that much of a fan of him, like, during his earlier days, especially during his first title run and beating Cena for the title. I believe in a tables match at TLC. I think. Yeah, I wasn't that much of a fan, but over time it changed.
I think what changed a lot of people's minds on who Sheamus really was his tag team in the bar with Claudio Castagnoli. That was some of the greatest work. Just the insane amount of tag team wars that they had as a championship duo. That put a lot of people on notice as how good both of them were. Now, we all knew what Claudio Castagnoli could do, especially when he was in Ring of Honor with that tag team as the Kings of Wrestling with Chris Hero. We all know what he can do. So let's see what happens going forward. Now, WWE didn't do any justice to Claudio at all. And I'm happy that well, yes, Chris Hero. Well, Chris
Hero, the guy who decided to eat his last name.
Yeah. He did gain a little bit of weight. But what was it? The person that was initially going to use the KO logo as Cassius Ohno.
Right.
So.
Roman Reigns entering this matchup. Sheamus trying to climb up the ropes with Solo Sikoa on his shoulder.
That is a lot of beef climbing that cage. Ooh.
T-minus 10 seconds till Roman Reigns enters this match, and it is officially War Games. I just imagine a long walk to the ring.
And now, the War Games, the match beyond. I had to go there.
Here comes the long walk. Man.
Yes. I'm surprised they don't play his music while he's walking to the ring.
Pyrotechnics and all.
And then stop at the door and point at the sky.
Well, don't forget, take the mic and say, "Acknowledge me."
Yeah. That would be funny if he had the microphone in his pocket and just pulled it out while he was in the ring and did that.
And the minute he's done, he just throws it over the top of his cage. Like, I mean, jeez.
That wasn't bad. She's pretty good.
That was good.
She's pretty good. She's no Gary Michael Capetta, but she's good.
Or as Jesse Ventura used to call him, Gary Kapetsky. Oh, I love this visual. All 5 of the team members side by side in opposite rings, divided by the 2 ring ropes. And there's carnage. They go to the above shot, which is probably the reason why they don't have the fence on the roof of the cage. And now it literally looks like a game of Risk. Well, now they're all going to come together and converge in one ring, and there they go. They don't get paid by the hour, McMahon. Oh, he's giving uppercuts to everybody. Watching Roman. Wow. I really wonder how this is going to shake out.
Honestly.
There is one man left standing. It should come as no
Ooh.
This could be the nail in the coffin of the brute.
Ooh. More like a nail in the root canal. He just caught that knee right in his mouth.
I'm saying.
Good grief.
So
it seems like everybody is like everybody's trying to get to Roman, and then all of the other players are trying to get people off of Roman.
So is the belief that Roman is gone in 23?
Oh man, look at this visual, peeps! Look at this visual.
Wow.
Look at this visual. Oh my gosh!
Everybody in the bloodline is in the middle of the 2 rings, and everybody is doing the 10 beats across the chest. That is an interesting visual. the optics on this look pretty good.
Okay, I'm seeing it now. I'm behind you guys.
Wow.
That is absolutely
That
phenomenal.
is sick. Hey,
See what I
That
did
does it.
there? There
Zing.
you go.
Deep Stage, what is the latest on Roman? Is he gone after WrestleMania next year?
I would not be surprised if he takes a break. I don't think he's done, but I'm pretty sure he wants to wind it down. I mean, as evidenced by the fact that he took that contract that kind of has him doing less. He doesn't do house shows anymore unless he shows up once in a blue moon to advance a storyline.
But does he have any
he's-
movies scheduled in 23 already? Like, is he
If he
filming?
does, I haven't heard of any of them yet, but I wouldn't be surprised. You know, he's got acting in his blood. So that's what he's got on his plate. I'm pretty sure that's what he's going to be doing at some point. I'm also kind of shocked that he hasn't been in the Young Rock series yet.
Well, it was funny that one episode where they made a mention of possibly the greatest match ever between Rock and Roman.
Yes.
Roman was like 8 years old.
Yeah.
oh, that match only happens at WrestleManias.
Right.
Yes. And it's funny that they kind of went into on Young Rock the period of 85 about the war to settle the score. And they actually had Becky Lynch play Cyndi Lauper in the
Lauper,
episode, which was absolutely hilarious.
That was
I
cool.
heard she was really good with the accent.
Yes, she
She
was.
was. Oh god.
Wow, what a spear. Now, what did being the purest of the war games, I personally don't care for seeing a pin in the war games. So, what do you think, Chris, as far as this goes? What we're seeing as far as people being able to win the match by pinfall in the match. You have an issue with that, or you're good?
I have no issue as long as it's not via escaping.
Yeah.
That is the tribal chief. You understand who you're dealing with?
It's Pete Dunne versus El Generico.
Does
Oh.
Sammy go to the gym? I mean,
Oh.
can we get Sammy a gym membership? I mean,
Wow. Uh-oh. We have our first dissension spot.
It was happenstance.
okay, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it now. Wow.
It's friendly fire.
He doesn't look unhappy about that.
Yeah.
Oh man, 1D.
You hear what they're calling Jey Uso. And now look at that, the 1D.
Isn't that what they call everyone from Massachusetts?
Take that man to the morgue.
War Games. Bridge breaks up the
Wow.
match. It saves
Kind of hard to get a pin when there's like 5 other bodies all over the ring.
Uh-huh.
Jey Uso. Oh, back and stereo super kicks.
And a
Oh, what a spot. I'll delay my excitement so Chris can catch up.
I just refreshed. I'm trying to catch up to you guys. I still don't understand why I'm behind. It makes no sense. I'm watching the same thing you are.
Taking the proverbial
Vince knows you're watching. That's why.
this friendly fire. The WWE fans thought differently, but it was followed up by a 1D. And then off the super kick, Roman Reigns with a spear to rip
That was a great visual of seeing the super kicks
finally gets him some
followed by the spear
perhaps on Reigns.
through a table.
Are people overusing the cutter now? I mean, Jesus.
Well, yeah, the cutter followed by the chop.
And now spinning solo through the table.
The other thing we're also seeing a lot of is fall away slams. I've noticed that a great deal of wrestlers, especially bigger, taller wrestlers, are starting to use fall away slams more than I used to ever see them.
Oh man.
Remember
Here we go.
these two had 2 years ago. Kevin Owens said it is far from over. I want another opportunity at the undisputed champion.
Many people, myself included, believe that night at Royal Rumble, had it not been for the last man, KO would be champion.
Oh boy. Roman Reigns
Now that's what I want to see.
Ooh.
Wow.
Ah!
He cheated. It's a closed fist, Gorilla. He's using a closed fist. He's cheating. Oh, wait a minute. Never mind.
Oh. Pop up!
Wow.
Is Owens
Pop-up
in
comment.
jeans?
Yes, he
Seems
is.
like it. Yup.
That makes sense for this kind of match. I like that. Not a regular match.
Now that
He's conflicted, Gorilla. He's conflicted.
I didn't even know you knew how to use that move, Monsoon.
Oh wow.
Oh.
I just
Oh man.
Oh, here we go. Your main event for WrestleMania. Sammy
Night one.
Uso and Kevin Owens. Wow.
What a visual.
And the audio. The fans
Mhm.
are into this.
it's so well done with the facials and the
Yes.
pace. Nothing's rushed.
Yes. Oh, Sami Zayn with the Ric Flair uppercut. There you go.
Look at his
there.
face. Look at the look on his face.
He's giving you the Shawn Michaels confliction face.
I'm sorry. I love you.
Wasn't it like a
Oh,
year
man.
ago they were bitter enemies?
Yeah.
Right. It's like,
Yeah,
remember
he's
when
so.
Orton used to punt people and then eventually he was friends with those people he punted at one point?
Yup.
Yes. Which is odd.
Right.
This is crazy.
No, this is Sparta. No, I'm just kidding.
You forgot to pause after this, but hey, I'll take it.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. No.
And It's
oh
not,
my.
and it's not a haluva kick. It's a hell of a kick. He just mispronounced it. That's what he's done.
No, the fact that Owens really fell into his arms. Oh my god. Just like this.
There you go. Does anybody have any complaints or any questions about where the allegiance of this man lies?
Oh wow, they did that. Okay, I'm seeing the finish
Yes.
now.
Yes.
Thoughts on the
Wow.
finish?
Tells a story.
Yes. Now, if you're going to use storytelling for
I mean, his face
a
says a
match
lot right
like
now.
this, yes. They could have done all of the storytelling without all of the weapons. And this match was still, especially the latter half, was much better than the opening first half of the match. When everybody got into the match, probably between the last two entrants going in and then actually starting the War Games proper, it picked up, and then the storyline, the tale that they were telling, everything worked. And it really reached a crescendo with what we saw Kevin Owens getting the Ric Flair uppercut to the yam bag. That's how you do it.
Wow.
Thanks, Taz.
Oh man. Then you have Hot Rod in the cut saying, "Never trust a white man." I can't.
Oh man.
It's him actually really getting accepted out here. I can't.
Yes.
Wow.
That's what I wanted to see. and he's accepted as one of them.
No, but it's the fact that he was he was crying before, shedding tears and all, and now he's so happy.
Oh wait, Jay accepted him finally.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's
Wow, I'm seeing this.
And as I said 2 weeks ago, I said that Sami Zayn is the MVP of the storyline because for a great amount of time, the Bloodline thing started to wear thin somewhat. The fans were starting to turn on the Bloodline, and they started to turn on Roman Reigns. Outside of him acknowledging himself, the fans really started to turn on him. It wasn't until the Sami Zayn aspect of the storyline really breathed life into it, and now that they have actually crafted something that makes sense within the dynamic of the Bloodline, and saying, well, you know, he's not blood, but he's family now. And this was literally an initiation match. If you want to go ahead and go and put it into those kinds of terms, this, for a big chunk, was Sami Zayn's initiation into the Bloodline. And that showed where they lie. I really enjoyed that.
Okay, so well, two things. One, I'm curious who came up with this idea because they deserve so much credit. Whoever the genesis of this idea. And two, you're the booker. What are you doing with this now? What's the payoff?
Yeah. Well, the payoff is now you have November, you've got December and January. You've got 2 months to build another feud for Roman Reigns. And since we now know going forward that after all of this has happened, we now know that Rollins, who just lost his United States Championship, now it's only a matter of time before we start interjecting him into, well, we're getting close to Rumble time. Maybe he's the next person to get a crack at the Tribal Chief. You know, former member of the Shield. Let's see what happens.
Wow.
That was great stuff.
So, peeps.
Yes.
Was this premium live event a chop?
It was definitely a chop. It wasn't a flop. It was definitely a chop. I thoroughly enjoyed it from beginning to end. I was able to catch a good chunk of the first War Games match, which I thought was pretty good. The Ronda match was what we kind of expected based on what they were doing. The Finn Balor AJ match was without question the second best match of the show. Depending on who you talk to, it probably was the first best. The Rollins, the triple threat match for the United States Championship was really, really good. Had, as far as I'm concerned, a really good finish. And that War Games, although that main event War Games match started off slow, but the last half of the match I thoroughly enjoyed, and it was great storytelling. It was crafted just right.
Yes. Chris, how about yourself, man? What did you think about Survivor Series this year?
It was a strong show. Definitely didn't disappoint. I mean, the ending told the story like you said, ultimately making the fans want to see more. Right? I mean, that's where you leave off tonight, going, okay, what's going to happen next? Instead of I'm tired of this.
Yes,
that's where you want the fans.
Yes.
Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens, on Monday and of course Friday. I mean, most definitely, as you guys said, I mean, like the storytelling, especially within the last match, crafted well. That ending, I mean, the look on Sammy's face, it said it all. I mean, for me, I felt that one. I really felt that one. The fact of being so conflicted, of having to choose between your best friend and having to choose between a bloodline. And then the fact of acceptance, knowing that Jay, after all this time, who didn't want him in the group, now going ahead and accepting him like that. I mean, wow. Yes. Most definitely, this did it for me. I really enjoyed this year's Survivor Series.
Pulled the emotion out of the fans, which is the thing that Vince always liked doing. Now that you have the fans behind Sammy, when the eventual turn happens and he's eventually out of the bloodline, he's going to have built-in face heat no matter where he goes. And I think if Triple H is watching this, this can actually be, I wouldn't say a harbinger, I would say more of a preparatory work, because I think down the road, if they wanted to say, you know what, Sammy, when we eventually separate the Universal and WWE championships, maybe one day make you a serious challenger and not a comedy wrestler, we may one day revisit you getting a championship shot.
Now, the question is, how long are we talking here, peeps?
Well, it's not going to happen anytime soon, but let's really be honest, the way that it's going, this bloodline thing, they're going to stretch this out at least minimum till WrestleMania. I can see this going towards SummerSlam, where they finally
depends on his availability, right? I mean,
yeah,
it could end at WrestleMania.
true, and also depending on how they sweeten the pot, they could extend this a little bit longer. So who knows? But I think that they're in a good place right now, where they've got the layers, and you're peeling that one layer, similar to what they've been doing with Bray Wyatt. It's like a little bit here, a little bit here. We're going to give you enough. Come back next week, we give you a little bit more, a little bit more. Well, they're doing this in smaller layers. Then they get you to the PLE, and then you look at it, we pull some more. Done a great job. As far as I'm
Did a
concerned.
great job. Taekwon was in here. Taekwon said Sammy sold the homie out. Oh man.
Yes.
Oh man. He
Yes.
really did. But hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for going ahead and
Yes.
tuning into the watch party, seeing our reactions, sitting through this whole
Yes.
show. Of course, I can go ahead and say thank you to Peeps and Chris for going ahead and taking time out of their day to go ahead and, be here tonight. And of course, guys, to go ahead and catch more of Chris, I mean, you guys can go ahead and tune into Morton's Law. I'll go ahead and even put up his Twitter and his IG out here, just so you guys can go ahead and give him a follow, just to see what he got out there. Of course, easy to know. His podcast, Morton's Law, is also available on Spotify and any other podcast media that would be out there. I know you're on YouTube as well, right, Chris? And it's the same thing, Morton's Law, guys. Trust me, Chris, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you for
Let's
having
Plug,
me.
my friend, plug.
Most definitely. But hey, guys, thank you for tuning in. It is me, the phenomenal one, Christopher Morton of Morton's Law, and of course, the one and only Deep Voice Dynamo Peeps Nates.
Yes,
Thank you once
yes.
again. See you next week, Saturday, for Saturday Afternoon's Main Event, Season 5, Episode 3. We're signing off. Peace, love, good night.